Morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to call this meeting to order, and we're going to start with a short prayer, and Donnie is going to do it for us.
Thank you, Lord, for this day you give us. Pray you be with us and guide us and give us wisdom as we make decisions here today and protect all our families and our community and heal our nation. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. We have an agenda before us. I'm just wondering if there's any additions to the agenda. Seeing none, I need a motion to adopt the agenda. Thank you, Councillor Crick. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Now we need the adoption of the minutes regular meeting of Council February 9th, 2022. Councillor Slipchak makes a motion to adopt that. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Now we need the Committee of the Whole for February 16, 2022. Thank you. Councillor Kraviak makes a motion to adopt that. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. Any business arising from the minutes? Seeing none, on to new business. 7.1, notice of motion. No? 7.2, Environmental and Protective Services, Bylaw 1796.
Good morning, Mr. Reid, members of council.
Good morning.
Good morning. Sorry, folks, I just lost my RFD here. Just give me a quick sec. Sorry. There we go. Okay. So, MD Council adopted a speed limit policy on May 27th of 2020, giving administration direction to collect current speed limits throughout the municipality. The data collected showed that there was an opportunity to change speed limits in various subdivisions and roads throughout the MD. Numerous proposals have been discussed with final recommendations now ready for consideration of Council. On June 16, 2021, Council gave direction to administration to bring back recommendations on increasing speed limits on approved engineered roads to 90 kilometers an hour. The recommendations being presented to Council are illustrated in Appendix A. The advantage of the speed increase recommendations is to safely expedite travel for MD residents and visitors. The roads that are chosen have been built to an engineered standard that supports a speed limit of 90 kilometers an hour. Appendix A also shows speed limit decreases in direct response to recommendations from ratepayers or recommendations to the Public Safety Department. Generally speaking, the reductions have been recommended only in residential subdivision type areas or in frequently traveled roadways where the engineering of the road, topography, width, or other considerations have demonstrated the need for a reduction. Attached for Council's review is Appendix A, the speed limit recommendations, and Appendix B, the speed limit map, dated to July of 2021. Both of these recommendations are in line with goal number 2 of our strategic plan, enhancing safety in the community, and goal number 4, enhancing livability in the community. Also, various sections of the Traffic Safety Act reference municipalities' authorities to adjust speed limits on roadways under their control or ownership, particularly particularly Part 5 of Section 106. The average cost for a speed sign on a pole is approximately $100. Calculations suggest that approximately 100 signs would be needed to re-sign all subdivision entrances, speed change, and speed change ahead signs. The total expense should come in at approximately $10,000. And the recommended action is that Council approves the speed limit review recommendations as presented, Furthermore, that council directs administration to update associated municipal bylaws as required. Sorry, folks, this is the wrong RFD. My apologies. I've got it. Sorry, it dates back to last year, and that RFD made it into my mix here. I apologize, folks. All right, we'll start again. MD Council adopted the speed limit policy on May 27, 2020, giving administration direction to collect current speed limits throughout the municipality. Data collected showed there was an opportunity to change speed limits in various subdivisions and roads throughout the MD. On July 28th of 2022, Council approved the speed limit review recommendations and directed administration to update the associated municipal bylaws. These changes focus on speed reductions throughout most of the MD hamlet subdivisions and certain roads, while other roads saw speeds increased. We've got a variety of appendixes. I've got some speed sign data. A final speed limit recommendation is Appendix B. Speed limit maps is Appendix C, subdivision map is Appendix D, and the bylaw for review 1796 is Appendix E. And the recommendation is that bylaw 1796, being a bylaw of the MD of Bonnyville number 87, to regulate the speed of the highways under this direction, control and management of the municipality, be given first reading.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm in favor of all these, except I thought we were taking this number 23 out here in front of, it's to reduce 80 to 60 along Eastbourne. We were just going to do around the corner there by the rehab center. You said you were going to take that other one out.
Okay, through the reeve to Councillor Scarzan, I don't remember discussing that, but if that we can discuss that right now, if you'd like.
I mean, yeah, we I had a lot of feedback on that one, and I mean it's a pretty straight stretch of road, new road, and you know, I know a lot of this. It was happening right when I was campaigning over there, stuff too, and a lot of people were pretty unhappy when they seen that. So
Okay.
I thought that we said the compromise would just be around the corner, going down to 50 there, because it is 80 still past the rehab.
Right.
To that, it's a tight corner and it's a narrow road there, so.
So through the reeve to Councillor Scarzan, so that particular section was a recommendation that I personally made, just having reviewed. I've been in that area myself several times, and I felt that that road was narrow and that the shoulders were fairly abrupt. Bush trimming doesn't seem as pronounced in other areas, so the shoulders seem to be quite narrow. That was my only consideration there, and I didn't have the benefit of having public consultation or consulted with any members of the public like perhaps you have. So.
Well, I mean, yeah, like I said, I like everything else, but if that's in there, I won't be voting in favor of it, just so you know.
Just a quick question. Was this from council or from yourself that recommended this? How did this come about?
I was tasked with basically doing a speed limit review. So driving, one of the first things I did when I came on board was to drive the MD extensively. So make notes of observations that I made. I've also lived in the MD for a long time, so I made some personal observations about some areas that I felt, you know, with my background in law enforcement that could be addressed. So based on that judgment, I made some recommendations, this being one of them. But certainly not my hill to die on. I mean, it's not one of the ones that I felt was a very, something that was needed. I mean, it was definitely a recommendation for consideration.
Yeah, I'm just talking about some of the ones that I travel every day. And, you know, the last few days since this is coming up, I've been following trucks to see how fast they're going. And most guys are going 90 to 100 on the 80, most guys. So if we put it to 90, they're going to be doing 100 to 110. So I'm pretty sure at 90, we're not ticketing people for going 90 down these 80-kilometer roads. I'm quite sure we aren't, unless someone gets real arrogant or something. But we usually let them go at 90. But I'm afraid at 90 on some of these major, they'll be doing 100 to 110, and that's getting pretty fast for some of these roads. That's just my opinion, though. But I don't know where this all stemmed from. So Yeah, Councillor Cravion.
Yeah, I remember I brought this up to council several years ago. People were asking me, you have a paved road like 660, you can go 100 clicks, and like 485, it's a nice paved road, why can't you go 100 clicks on that road as well? And many people are going more than 80 on those roads anyway, the paved roads. They're going 90 to 100 regardless.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That at 80, they're going 90 to 100, so at 90, they'll be going up to 110. Because usually it's about 19 kilometers over the speed limit that, you know, you get a grace usually, so just a thought.
The majority of these, like the highways that we're discussing here, were set to 80, and the thought was to let's try to increase it to a safe speed that could increase the mobility of industry and of the residents in the area. So I don't think that, you know, there was consideration of going up to 100, and the roadways are not engineered to 100 kilometers an hour. They're engineered to a maximum of 90. So generally speaking, those roads they're not as frequently traveled as primary, secondary highways. You're going to have a lot more gaps in traffic, and that's why my recommendation was to increase them to 90, just to increase the flow of traffic in the area. I did not see that there was a significant enhanced risk to public safety by increasing it 10 kilometers an hour.
Okay. Yes, Councillor Slipcheck?
Yes, okay, we want to increase the speed limits on these highways, but could we look at doing it just like light vehicles, increasing it, and then on heavy traffic, maintain that 80 kilometers? Because I believe with the heavy trucks and heavy equipment, that we should remain at that 80 kilometers an hour on those highways, because those trucks, they take a lot longer to stop, and if you have an issue, is there a possibility of that?
Councillor, oh, you want to answer that first and then?
Through the Reeve to Councillor Slipchuk, I believe that can be done. That wasn't part of these recommendations. I do believe that adds a bit of confusion, I think, to the public, and also sometimes for prosecution when you've got two different speed limits. That's dating back several years. If you think back to when it was nighttime and daytime speeds and that kind of thing, there was a movement to go away from that because it was somewhat confusing to the public. And even today, if you look at school zone rules and regulations, very confusing. Sometimes they're posted, sometimes they're not. Certain cities can enact bylaws. The provincial standards are not always adopted in every city, so it is a bit confusing for the public. I would recommend trying to have a standard speed in most cases, but that would be just my recommendation.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Fidel? Thank you. Councillor Fidel?
Yeah, I just kind of want to just, say exactly what Mr. Gandolfi said. These are professional drivers. They drive, millions of miles, and I think, I think it'd just be too, way too confusing if we had two speed limits. So.
Yeah, no, I agree too. Yes, Councillor Cravion?
Thank you. I'll make a motion to go to first reading.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor.
Mr. Reeve?
Yes? Oh, sorry.
So we can discuss the motion now?
I was going to read it out, but
Oh,
it never
sorry.
came up, sorry.
Go ahead.
And I'm not fast enough on my computer here. Yeah. Okay, we have a motion that bylaw number 1796 being a bylaw of the Municipal District of Bonnyville number 87 to regulate the rates of speed on highways under the direction, control, and management of the municipality be given first reading. Any discussion on this motion? Councillor Crick.
So if we go ahead and give this first reading, how does the process work if there's going to be changes to it then?
To Councillor Crick, through the Reeve, pretty simple, just like any other motion, would be an amending motion. If there's something, for example, Councillor Scarson's concern regarding that one particular stretch of road, that would just be an amendment to amend Appendix A number, whatever it was in the appendix, to remove it, and then council would then vote on the amendment, and then from there it would be back. At the end of the day, if that happens, we'd be voting on the amended bylaw.
Okay, thank you. Councillor
Yeah,
Scarson?
furthermore, I mean, I would like to add an amendment that it was, that remove number 23, it was, remain as is. So if it becomes a problem, we can re-examine later, but too much pushback for my liking, so.
Okay, we have a motion to amend the bylaw. Is that correct? To remove number 23.
Do you want to amend the motion, the main motion, to give it first reading with the amended Schedule A of removing number 23? Or do you want to make that a separate motion?
Mr. Reeve?
Yes, Councillor Krivia?
Councillor Scarson, you can make a friendly amendment.
Pardon me?
You can make a friendly amendment to the motion,
Sure.
and I could accept that. Sure.
Yep, I do.
You do? Okay, so I'll accept his friendly amendment to remove number 23.
So you're going to add this onto your motion?
Yes, it'll be an amendment.
Through the Reeve to Mr. Gandolfi. Range Road 450, that's south of Fort Kent, to Highway 659. That one currently has a speed limit of 80. However, it appears to be a paved highway equal to Highway 660 or any other highway that's 100 kilometers an hour. And has that one been given consideration to raise that speed up to 90 as well? Because I see that's not raised in the list.
Thank you for the question. Through the Reeve to Councillor Crick, that highway was considered. There was actually the previous councillor from Ward 2 had some discussions with residents in the area, and there was a request made that state remain at 80 kilometers an hour based on the conversations that the previous councillor had with the constituents in that area.
Okay, thank you.
Al?
Thank you, Mr. Reeve, members of council. I just process, really, friendly amendments really don't exist. There was a motion on the floor, and then Councillor Scarson moved an amendment. Council should debate the amendment and vote on the amendment
Yes.
as to whether or not that changes the original motion. And then from there, we could go on to discuss any other amendments that,
Okay.
that they want to do. But we're kind of, I'm not even clear right now what the motion is. So I would suggest the council go right back to the beginning. Councillor Kreviak made the motion, and then Councillor Scarson made an amending motion. Council should debate and vote on Councillor Scarson's amending motion, which would then amend the main motion.
Okay, sorry, council, my mistake. We're going to go back to the original, and then there's amendment to the motion. So any discussion on that amendment to the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. Okay, now the motion reads that bylaw number 1796 being a bylaw of the Municipal District of Bonnyville, number 87, to regulate the rate of speed on highways under the direct control and management of the municipality be amended to remove item number 23 from Schedule A and to be given first reading. Any discussion on this motion? Yeah, I have some discussion, I guess. I don't like moving the major highways from 80 to 90, but that's about it. Okay, any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Yeah,
I
Mr.
think
Reeve,
so, probably.
we have a delegation ready.
Okay, thank you. All right, we have the delegation stars. There she is.
Should I go ahead?
A little more volume.
Okay.
That's good, yeah.
Is that better?
Yeah, a little too much, but go ahead. Thank you. We'll adjust as we go. Good morning.
Okay. Good morning. So it's my pleasure to bring you your annual update. I've included an overview of STARS for the benefit of your new council members, as well as current updates and new innovations for the opportunity for STARS to provide critical care anywhere. So I was just going to share my screen. It's telling me, let's see here. Are you able to see that critical care anywhere?
Yes, now we can.
Okay, great. So COVID-19 pandemic continues. Oh, just one moment, it's not wanting to advance for me. There we go. COVID-19 pandemic continues and STARS remains under strict protocol to protect our operations. Our transport physicians continue to provide critical care guidance, airway management, ventilation, and resuscitation procedures for local healthcare professionals. We also continue to see an increase in stress-related types of missions like heart attack, stroke, drug overdose, and approximately 1 in 5 missions are COVID-related. The pandemic has impacted our revenue in all funding areas. The long-awaited HEMS review, which was released by the Government of Alberta, posed several recommendations, including STARS, but for now, these remain only recommendations. Government has indicated they will continue with consultations before any final decisions are made. So in the meantime, they have extended the 20% government funding for STARS this year. This is the same amount of funding that we received while we had a 10-year affiliation agreement in previous years. While the demand for STARS continues to increase, and we also continue to help with the pandemic, we must continue to fundraise 80% of our crucial operational funds. So the pandemic has forced us to think outside the box and be proactive. We identified operational and fundraising efficiencies. Sadly, we had to downsize staff members in affected areas like events across all 6 STARS bases. The STARS lottery remains our single largest funding source. And because of this, we went ahead with the 2021 lottery despite the pandemic. And Albertans continue to stand by our side as that lottery sold out. And the 2022 lottery is fast underway now. The calendar campaign significantly decreased with the inability to travel to rural communities, but urban municipal partners offered to help, and calendar sales were available at many town offices across Alberta. There's an unforeseeable future for our mainstay events, and we cannot exist without community support. We're grateful to many rural communities who continue to host 50/50s and raffles online in place of their community fundraisers that cannot be held. And we also developed a multi-provincial radiothon to help support our mission. Behind the scenes, the STARS Emergency Link Center is an immediate 24/7 safety network. They have access to every available resource, including GIS mapping and preset coordinates to help locate a patient. They receive over 31,000 emergency requests every year, and there's a 1-to-10 ratio for every STARS mission flown. So in other words, if a rural community like Bonnyville, for example, were to see 20 STARS missions flown each year, it's likely that STARS has also assisted that local community, their doctors and first responders with 200 additional emergency calls throughout the year by our STARS transport physicians providing virtual consultation with your local doctors, as well as providing medical oversight for all critical patients, regardless of how that patient may be transported. whether they go by ground ambulance, Alberta Health Services fixed wing, rotary wing, or STARS helicopters. Our transport physicians are the ones that are providing medical oversight, and they are the link to providing critical care anywhere. A new pilot project is also launched with our transport physicians now taking a shift in the Emergency Link Center. STARS crews administer critical care while en route to the hospital, and the transport physicians are also saving precious time on the back end by coordinating the complex logistical arrangements with the receiving hospitals for such things as scheduling neurosurgeons, cardiac cath lab, and CAT scanners. So in a time-dependent case like a brain bleed, for example, minutes count, and physicians are now making face-to-face decisions virtually using real-time diagnostics. This results in the immediate direct delivery of critical patients to the operating room. It is a game changer. Let's look at a 5-year mission overview within the MD of Bonnyville. We continue to see the mission rate increasing across the entire province, as we see it for your area as well. Within the MD and area, on an overall average, you average about 37 missions flown per year. There's already been additional 3 missions this year. It's important to know what's happening in your area. Critical transfers usually do involve where a rural scene incident has occurred and a patient is taken by ground ambulance to the nearest hospital. Then STARS is called to provide critical intervention and transport. The Bonnyville Hospital has seen significant increases in interfacility transfers last year. Some of this may also be attributed to COVID-related calls. Everyone travels, commutes for work or recreation, or traveling into neighboring municipalities. Emergencies do not always happen close to home. Your residents may be flown from incidents that have occurred in neighboring municipalities that are not shown here in these statistics. The value of your support of STARS is evident in our partnership and the fact that your residents have access to STARS wherever they may go in their daily travels or traveling across Western Canada. The Municipal Initiative Partnership is vital to the sustainability of our operations, and the green areas represent a municipal supporter of STARS across Alberta and into BC. Alberta municipalities recognize STARS as an essential service and a vital asset of emergency protective services that they provide for their residents. The majority of Alberta rural and urban municipalities are united in regional partnerships like the MD of Bonnyville and your regional neighbors, and are pledging a minimum $2 per capita basis or an annual fixed dollar value. We thank you for your previous support. This helped us to generate over $2 million per year in sustainable funding. And the 7 municipalities outlined in red boxes have received logo recognition on the helicopters, having reached more than $1 million in cumulative support of STARS. You know, it was a massive undertaking. The thought of a $138 million fleet campaign seemed almost impossible, and of course not knowing at the time that we would also be amid a global pandemic. Federal, provincial, and municipal government have embraced the vision of 9 H145s to serve for the decades to come. It's awe-inspiring the support we continue to receive for the new coming fleet from corporate, individuals, and even municipalities, with approximately $1.8 million raised to date from municipalities contributing a voluntary one-time fleet gift. We anticipate that there will be $15 million yet to come from the sale proceeds of the previous aging fleet. And with very recent gifts that we've just received, we are now less than $1.2 million remaining. So our campaign continues, and we're very close to finishing it. This H145 outperforms the previous BK117s in speed, range, and fuel efficiency, and it's known for its power. The unique Fenestron tail that you see delivers increased maneuverability with decreased noise and vibration and significant safety features over the previously exposed tail rotor. The new Airbus H145 is breakthrough technology. The cockpit features advanced avionics, reduces pilot fatigue, especially in back-to-back missions. It has a new 5-bladed system, which will provide increased lift and load capacities. And the significant safety features will also help reduce operational cost. Your area will be served by the new H145 very soon. We're excited for the final 2 to arrive in the coming weeks, one for the Grand Prairie base and one for Edmonton. Expecting pilot training to be completed in spring, which has also been delayed due to COVID, and we anticipate to be fully H145 operational across all 6 bases in 3 provinces by June or July of this year. On the right-hand side, it is a state-of-the-art intensive care unit environment with the latest in medical technology, also Bluetooth and satellite connectivity, using real-time diagnostics that can be transmitted to the transport physicians working in the Emergency Link Center and the physicians at the receiving hospitals. When you combine this with the world-class expertise of our STARS crew, it results in STARS providing the highest level of critical care available today. STARS was born out of necessity. We've been serving Albertans since 1985, more than 45,000 missions flown, and at no cost to our patients. We thank you, MD of Bonnyville, for a decade of life-saving partnership with STARS since 2012. Your previous 4-year pledge of support, which was based on $10,000 per year, has expired. And the demand for STARS continues to increase, and we must rely on steadfast partners like you. So I'm asking for your continued support, and I'm also asking for your kind consideration for a slight increase to move your pledge to a $1 per capita per year commitment for another 4-year term, of course in conjunction with your council term. A life is saved every day, and partnerships are what make this possible. You are STAR's reason for being, and I thank you very much for your time and consideration.
Yeah, thank you, Glenda, for that presentation. Any questions? Yes, Councillor.
I'm just curious, the new H145, do you know how long that'd be from, let's say, taking off from Bonnyville to touching down into U of A? Like, how long would that trip take?
I'm sorry, that's more of an operational question. I don't know, but I do know that the new H145, with its fuel efficiency, will allows about an extra 25 to 30 minutes flight time. So it will increase our range, and it also shaves off the time by about 10 to 15 minutes. So I'm assuming that for your area, it may land in kind of the 40-minute range.
Okay.
Just estimating.
Any other questions? No, seeing none. Well, thank you so much. Great presentation. Thank you so much. STARS is a great organization.
Well, we certainly appreciate all of your support and help to continue to take this, into the future for our generations yet to come. We're going to have a brand new fleet. Our current fleet has been serving us for, going on 40 years, and we're very excited for this new fleet and the new innovations that we can bring to continue to help save lives in your area.
One quick question. Where do these choppers come from? Who makes these choppers?
Germany. Airbus
okay.
makes these.
Okay, well.
They're
All right,
basically They're basically the new version of the BK 117, which has been a workhorse and served us very well. So that was one of the considerations moving forward.
Right, well, okay, thank you, Glenda. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you as well.
Yeah, goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Our next one is at 9:45. Let's just take a 10-minute break and... Yeah, oh, sorry, that's me again. All right, need a motion?
I'll make the motion to
Okay,
accept.
thank you, Councillor Scarson. That council accepts this presentation by Star Air Ambulance of their annual report as information, and furthermore, that council directs administration to bring back additional information regarding their request for funding to a future meeting of council for consideration. Any discussion on this? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. All right, now we'll take a 5-10 minute break till the next delegation. Okay, welcome back. We have another delegation. We're going to get him up on the screen. Oh, there she is. Let's see, Sylvia.
Hi, Sylvie, can you hear me?
Sylvia, yeah.
Sylvie's meal.
All right, whenever you're ready.
All right. Well, good morning, Council. How are you guys this morning?
Good morning. We're all pretty cold, I think. How is it out there in your area?
Well, it's warm in the house, but it's cold outside.
Well, good morning, Sylvia.
All right. So I'm just going to quickly share my screen, unless you guys have a copy of the presentation already on there.
We do.
I'm sure we have a presentation, we have a copy.
Okay. So, oh, sorry. So you don't want me to share my screen?
It's up to you. You can, or we do have a copy, though. It's
Okay.
it's totally up to you.
Okay, no worries. Well, I'm just going to share it because it's my speaking notes, so sorry.
No problem.
Okay. So my name is Sylvie Smill, and I'm currently living in St. Paul. I'm from St. Paul my whole life, and just this past summer, I took a position with Accès Emploi. And so my position is the employment coordinator for the Northeast region. So that includes the Lakeland, Cold Lake, and then Bonnyville, Lac La Biche area. Okay. At any point, if you guys want, you're more than willing to stop and ask me questions, but there is a brief period at the end for questions if you have any, okay? So I'm not going to be showing promotional video today because sometimes I have audio, but it's also strictly in French. So I'll spare you guys that. Basically, it's just running through the programs that is offered through Accès Emploi. So we are established in 2002, and it's the only employment center entirely dedicated to serve French-speaking job seekers in Alberta. And we are proud to be rooted in the Lakeland, Fort McMurray, Cold Lake regions since 2009. We provide personalized job search to help Albertans help them successfully enter or re-enter the labor market as quickly as possible. Everything is free of charge. We are a not-for-profit. And as I've said before, we have Cold Lake, St. Paul, Bonnyville, Plamondon, Lac La Biche is in there. And it's stated in that one slide that everything is done remotely. At the moment, I'm a remote coordinator primarily due to COVID. So these are some of the, some of the services offered. English for the workplace courses. I do have some clients that I'm working with that do need help with the English language because they are very French speaking. I did help with resume, career orientation, one-on-one meetings, and then employer connections and networking. So hence why I am networking or hoping to network with you at the MD. Now, some of our workshops, many of the workshops are done online, and they are done through Zoom. Currently, they are offered through our Edmonton head office. They weren't before when it was in person, so there's always advantages and disadvantages to Zoom, but in this case, it's an advantage for learning. So this is just some of the employment workshops available. There's some, as you can see, there's some pre-employment and there's some employment ones. The eligibility criteria is that they speak French, that they are 18 years of age, that they reside in the Northeast region, that they are Canadian citizen, permanent, temporary resident with a valid Canadian work permit. It can also be one of those travel visas, travel work visas, also is an eligibility criteria for the program. So this is just an example of some of the employer job fairs that we've done in the past, and this is a service that we offer to the employers. We've done, H&R Block and some other programs there in the city primarily, but I'm hoping to do some in the Lakeland, and just to be able to showcase our region to the province and perhaps to Canada or wherever they are, to attract high quality employees and employers. So this is just some of our opportunities done through the employers. We do have the job postings on our job board and our website online. We do have support for the recruitment of bilingual employees, the promotion and advertisements of jobs through our network, recruitment days, and you will have the opportunity to meet qualified potential employees. And those are, as discussed, the job fairs. Come and meet potential employees and conduct on-site interviews. So currently I am working with some schools, school boards, libraries, and I'm hoping to do an outreach, or not hoping, but I am currently doing an outreach to the community through the youth. They are our future. And so I'm really trying to focus on the region. Why would these, youth want to be here? What does this region have to offer for jobs? And how can we successfully integrate them in jobs? So some of the things that I've done is resume development, provide them with some labor market information, and help some with social media. LinkedIn has become a big avenue for employers, and employees as well. So now this is it's not my program, but it's another program that's done through Example. We call it a sister program. This is called JET. It's Youth Education and Work, basically. Now, JET is an Example program. It's funded by the Government of Canada's Youth Employment and Skills Strategy. So whether they wish to find a job, go back to school, or develop skills that will lead to employment, the JET program is there for support for these youth. Now, the JET program is a federally funded program versus my employment is more a provincially funded program. So the criteria for the JET is that they be 15 to 30 years of age, that they be Canadian citizen, permanent resident, or conventional refugee. A work travel visa does not apply for JET. And they do have to have that valid Canadian work permit. They have to be looking for a job, professional development, or some type of an apprenticeship program. Now, here's the big thing for you guys is the main criteria is that they reside in the MD or the town of Bonnyville. Bonnyville was selected as kind of like a pilot project for this initiative. Now it's ongoing, I believe, till the end of 2024. So there isn't a set deadline like you see in some other grant applications. It's just, it's a project, it's an initiative that's done through Example that's open for that. Now, another criteria you will not see on this one, as you will see on mine, is that the eligibility does not need to be Francophone. So these youth do not need to be French speaking because they see us living in the North as somewhat of a, I'm not quite sure what the word is, but a minority, I guess. They're offering it to us here in the North. So some of the services, just like my career orientation career orientation and planning and employment readiness, they also get reimbursement of job-related expenses. So if they need some PPE equipment, or there's a cost to the criminal record check, H2S, first aid, even some things like first aid courses, some of these can be covered through the JET program. The criteria on this one is that they need to have total or partial funding, they can have total or partial funding available for the accredited training of up to 12 weeks or less, but it must be done through an accredited college or university. And to the employer, there's a wage subsidy of $10 per hour. There's a certain amount there, $7,560 available for the employers. This is just basically our website. So if you want to know more, I can send that to you. accèsemploi.net is what it is. Here's some of the programs that we've partnered with, or employers that we've partnered with. Some big names in there. I was part of the Amazon one, and I am planning on being some of the Campus Saint-Jean ones as well. So we've partnered with many, and we're hoping to partner more. That's me, and really, that is the end of my presentation.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Okay, well, thank you for your presentation. Well done, and have a great rest of the day.
Well, guys, I just want to really thank you for your time. So I appreciate that this morning. Have a good day.
You're very welcome. Take care. All right, we need a motion, gentlemen. All right, Councillor Kraviak makes a motion that council accepts the presentation by ACE employee regarding the programs they offer as information. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. We are at 722? 722? Gear jammers are coming in, correct? Yes. Okay, thank you. Or gear grabbers. Bonnyville gear grabbers, sorry.
That's a trucking thing. Jammers are a trucking thing.
Morning, Matt.
Morning, Council.
That's me most mornings, grinding gears.
Okay, what I have today is the developed road allowance and brush and vegetation control. What I wanted to discuss with council today is to review the developed road and allowance and brush control policy and procedure. The current policy was adopted by council in February of 2020, and the 5-year brushing map was adopted by council January 27th, 2021. Administration has completed 2 years of the 5-year brushing control program, and what I wanted to discuss today was on kind of results that we've had with the brushing, and some of the changes that we are looking to adapt in the upcoming 5-year plan. So what I've attached for council's review is the policy itself, 5A-016. Also, Appendix B is a developed road allowance, brush, and vegetation control procedures. That's how we choose the roads and do the notifications and that. And then Appendix C is our 5-year approved brushing map that was approved last year. So I'll just kind of go briefly through some of the challenges that we've had in the past 2 years with the brushing that has been completed. So on average, we've completed around 50 kilometers of brushing that was done by contracted services. How the roads were chosen by transportation utilities and ag services were assessments by the operators that were grading the roads. They were grading, they were having trees kind of by the graders, banging on the graders and that. So those roads were kind of picked as priority roads to get completed brushing. Also, the foreman reviewed all the roads and put their priority roads on the map and were reviewed. Some of the challenges that administration is having is rocks. Obviously, some of the roads that were being brushed were constructed 30, 40, 50 years ago, and where the back slopes were filled with rocks at the time, or rocks from nearby properties were kind of rolled into the ditch, and that's why we have brush along the roads, and those roads were chosen for those reasons. Now we're in the year 2, roads that were completed in 2021, a lot of rocks were left behind. And within the road procedures that we have, the rocks were not part of the contract for the contractors to remove, so now they're still in the ditch. So what administration is asking council to reconsider, choosing different roads that would fit our criteria. That is in the policy still, but it just allows a better job to be done. We don't want where we have a road left behind with a large amount of rocks that are going to have challenges in the future. So maybe leave those roads for or rebuild instead of brushing. So
Are we planning to go clean up some of those ditches, or just too much to clean up kind of thing?
Through the yes. So in the procedures or in the policy, it states that transportation utilities would look at these roads in future years to remove the rocks or the debris and do any backsloping that's needed. So it does state in the policy that it will be done, but there's no timeline on when those are going to be completed. Okay. So there's a few different options that we can look at. The way that we're leaning as administration is to reevaluate some different roads that meet our current criteria, that we can go brush, remove a few rocks, and then that road be complete. Instead of brushing the road, having large rocks left behind, and then relying on the other department to come back at a later date to remove. Because that being said, they also have put money in the budget to remove those rocks, and at this time they haven't. Mm-hmm. So those 2 years of rocks or of roads that we've left behind, to this date, we've removed a few rocks, but not all the rocks. And
so just a kind of a dumb, can you go in with a traco and a slant bucket and bury those, or just too much?
Yes.
Too much?
Through the reeve, yes. We could go back, and if council would have some money to put resources in, yes, we could go back and do that to those roads. What we're thinking right now, if we're going to continue with the brushing program, that we just change our criteria on the roads that we've chosen so far. But looking back into those 2 previous years, that maybe council does give some money in the budget to clean up those roads that were completed already. So.
All right, thank you. Yeah, Councillor Slipchick.
Yeah, okay, on the back slope in the ditches there, I know there's lots of farms in my area that they've already cleared the brush along the road, but no back sloping took place.
Yes.
So is the MDs responsible, should go in there and get all that back slope?
So through this brushing program, it doesn't allow us to go back there to redo the back sloping. That would have to be a separate project by transportation utilities for that. And in our kind of our tenders that we do out for contractors, there's no mention of adjusting any of the back slope or changing any of the rocks, because it's just straight brush removal. There's no back slope portion of that. Now, if we were to change, if instead of going for 50 kilometers for the brushing program, if council so wishes, we could change our process, decrease the number of kilometers and include the back slope or include rock removal, but of course we know we won't achieve as many kilometers with only a $500,000 budget.
Okay. Well, I just think there's something that should be looked at is about the back slope, and if after farmers have cleared that, because I've seen in areas where not proper back slope is getting onto the roads and affecting the roads.
But that's a totally different program though too, right?
Okay.
You're talking about when that 2,500 they do their own, up to 2,500,
Okay.
is that 3,500 now?
Yeah, it's 35.
Okay.
Yes, we do have our roadside sloping program where we do assist farmers or landowners to do the back slope.
Oh, okay.
So yes, if the MD was approached to assist on doing our portion of a back slope, we do pay up to 3,500 for that program. So that is a program kind of just to help those farmers that are already going to do the road allowance.
Okay. Another question.
Yeah,
Now, on the
Councillor
brushing, do you think not, that we should not have included in here for brushing drainage ditches? Because I know there's lots of drainage ditches that have lots of trees in them. And that causes problems with beavers, blockage. So should that not be involved in this
In this, through the
brushing
REAV
program?
Yeah, through the REAV to Councillor Slipjock. Yes, there is, concerns obviously with ditching and that, and currently the Transportation Utilities Department does do all the brushing in the ditches and that. So I believe it might even be discussed later on in this meeting, the brushing map for the drainage ditches and work, so.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
So, at the end, we're looking for a little, for administration to go back to review our brushing maps that we currently have presented to council previously to reconsider some different roads to choose. And if council so wishes, we could come back to council with that map, or council could leave it up to administration to set the budget of $500,000 administration between transportation and utilities, and Ag Services goes out, picks the roads that maybe fits our criteria a little bit more without as much debris in the ditch, that we can achieve the estimated 50 kilometers of road every year. So it just maybe will give administration a little bit more flexibility. Still meeting our policy, still meeting our procedures of notifying all the residents, making sure everybody knows what we're doing, getting their feedback, and making a good decision on everybody's part, so.
Okay, we need a motion.
I'll make a motion that we accept.
Okay, Councillor Slipchick makes a motion that council directs administration to review the 2022 approved brushing list and bring back an updated brushing plan to a future meeting of council for consideration. Any discussion on this? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. I guess you guys are here, so I guess you guys can come on up. Mr. Law, Mr. Gamache. I called you guys the gear jammers, and then Ben said that's me.
Morning, guys.
Morning.
Morning. So, I guess we're here just to give you guys a bit of a... There's a green light on. Red light?
You got her.
Good. Perfect. Thank you. So why we're here is to kind of give you guys just a backstory of who we are, what we're doing, what we've been up to, and how we got to this point. So we'll kind of go through just a quick presentation we put together. Do we have a button where we can?
Yeah, it's right there.
Perfect. Thank you. So I'm Sean Gamache with Trent Law. Sorry, for those who don't know us. I think we know pretty much everybody here. But back in 2011, the Gear Grabbers started with just about 5 or 6 guys and girls in a garage that recognized that Bonnyville doesn't have much of a car culture, even though it's full of cool cars, fast cars, all that kind of good stuff. So we kind of hit the ground running in 2011 and just started off with a car show. In the back of our mind, we wanted to do some racing at the airport because it's a venue that's there, it's ready to go, but we had no money, no support, no real name to ourselves yet. So that was always in our game plan. But we started off in 2011 with just a small show, about 60 vehicles in attendance. It was a rainy day, so we considered it a success. We went on into 2012, doubled our attendance to 120, and then it kind of went from there. We quickly gained a reputation of having one of the best car shows in northeastern Alberta. So through that, we were able to gain recognition in town. We were able to gain sponsors, start saving up some money, and so forth. These shows raised funds for local charities, increased business to local hotels, campsites, fuel stations, restaurants, etc. So as the car show continued to grow, an opportunity came up for us to buy some drag racing equipment at half the cost of what it is new. So that's where it kind of all started. After years of saving up money, we went drag racing. So long short of it, we invested about $20,000 in equipment, and with support of the MD, the town, sponsors, Flying Club, we went racing. So in 2019, we saw about 2,000 spectators each event, which we were blown away, and about 120 racers from all over Alberta and Saskatchewan. The reviews we got from both spectators and racers was tremendous. So we had a good first go at it. In 2021, obviously 2019 we skipped because of COVID. In 2021, we decided to combine the car show and racing into one big event. This is mainly to try and take down volunteer burnout, because a lot of us were getting pretty burnt out from running 3-4 events a year, and obviously save some money. So 2021, we had a Friday night show and shine. I know Ben was a big part of that also. We saw about 160 vehicles on the airport grounds. It was a huge success. And of course, the weekend, we had about 1,500 to 2,000 spectators each day, and about 100 racers each day from, once again, all over Alberta and Saskatchewan. So just, we threw in some pictures just to kind of give everybody that maybe hasn't been there kind of a good idea of, you know, the feeling that's there, the aura, it's a lot of fun. It's grassroots, but it's also professional. We have cars that are making 1,500 to 2,000 horse, and moms that come out with their SUV Explorer. Just to have fun and get to know the sport. We even had some peace officers out there last year. I think they had a lot of fun with that. The crowd sure did. Here's our posters, as we do pride ourselves in giving Bonnyville and the MD a real good name for itself by looking professional. A big part of what we do is our volunteers. It takes about 13 local men and women to organize what we do, and it takes about 30 volunteers plus each day just to run the event. In the past 2 years, we've donated just about $10,000 to the SPCA. The Cheer Club, Côte de Lac, we employ them essentially to come and help us out there, and in turn give them money as well. Once again, just here's some volunteer photos. It's very important to the organizers to make sure our volunteers have a good time when they're out there, and they really enjoy what we do. It's actually it's a really good time out there. It's hard work, but it's fun. So obviously a big part of what we do is the spectators. We're seeing about 1,500 to 2,500 spectators per day, and we are officially the largest grassroots drag race event in Alberta. It might even be in Canada when we're talking grassroots drag race events in just a matter of 2 years. So we're pretty proud of what we've been able to accomplish. Admission, it's very important for us to keep it affordable for families, so it's only $10 per day. 12 and under are free. Show and shine is free.
And we get a huge amount of response from the communities at the $10 a person, 12 and under free, that it's family affordable, cheap. The food trucks are out there. It's a really great family day event, and they said, don't jack up the price. We're not about jacking up prices. It's a family event. It's not about making a lot of money. It's about putting an event on for the community. So that's gone over very well.
Yep, that's a good point, Trent. We work really hard to ensure that our fans are kept entertained all day. We try to have no lulls, no delays. The pits are open to spectators. They can go check out the cars, talk to the racers, sit in the cars. The racers love it and the spectators love it. So keeping our spectators happy are very, very important to us. You know, more spectators, we get more racers, because racers love spectators, and more racers equals more spectators, so it's a win for both sides. We threw in a bunch of reviews here that we get on Facebook from what we do. I'm not going to go and read all these to you guys. If you guys want to read them, I would encourage you to. Yeah, so I'm not going to go through these. We just threw in a few highlight reviews that we see on our social media platforms. Racers, once again, I think we've talked about how many races we see. Our non-local racers do camp often on the airport grounds in the pit area. We have seen racers also use our hotels and local campsites. And once again, threw all these in just to show, I mean, we have people that come from all over Alberta. We have Strathcona County, Hanna, Streamstown. These are past winners. Fort McMurray, Leduc, Fort Saskatchewan, Rimbey, Vegreville, Sherwood Park. So as you can see, we have a real vast racer count and presence from all over Alberta.
One unique thing, our event, we give no cash prizes to our racers.
Yeah.
We do give a little bar fridge with our community logo on it, and it's gone over very well. Whenever you introduce money to that, it becomes problematic in rules and infighting, and it gets
Drama.
lots of drama.
Yeah.
This is proved very successful with that format. So.
Yeah. Sponsors, big part of what we do is our sponsors. We're 100% local with our sponsors. We keep them very involved with the event, show a ton of appreciation. Once again, feel free to read. We did get some reviews and feedback from our sponsors, so we've included that in there. Safety is obviously our #1 priority. Once again, I'm sure all you guys have read this. We're fully insured. We have all the response, medical, fire, all that kind of stuff that we need there. Air traffic is monitored. We do everything we can to make sure we're running as safely as possible. Social media, we threw this in there just to show that one of the things we really pride ourselves in is putting Bonnyville on the map. And we have quite the reputation on social media. We have thousands of viewers. Some posts will see up to 20,000 views. This is all over Western Canada. So we have quite the presence on social media, which helps with our success. We give our sponsors tons of plugs. These are all kind of the things we like to do. So our goals, getting to why we're here today, obviously we want to continue to grow the event. We want to sustain and grow our spectator count, which isn't always an easy thing in the drag racing world, so we have to continue to, I mean, people at times can get bored of watching cars just going in a straight line all day. So we're always looking at ways to evolve the event. We're looking at bringing in some special feature cars. We do want to look at starting upgrading equipment. We do have used equipment. It does have some fallbacks at time. We want to continue to work on our track preparation. It's a big part of keeping our racers happy. We also want to work further with our sponsors to how we can benefit them from what we do. Continue to grow our relationship with the flying community, and continue to grow our reputation as one of the best drag race airport events really in Canada, both from a spectator and racer point of view. So getting to the end of it here, why we're here today. Obviously, we want to introduce ourselves to the new MD Council and hopefully begin a mutual working relationship with everybody. Seek a confirmed official approval. We do have dates for 2021 with an unofficial approval from MD, but we are looking for an official approval, of course. Answer any questions or concerns. Discuss how the Lakeland can benefit from what we do, and discuss some of our struggles. And of course, a big one for us is perhaps begin discussions on a 5-year contract, so we can be more comfortable in investing in equipment, et cetera. And that's really the long short of it.
Questions or comments? Councillor Scarson?
Yeah, so just about the bleachers, how have you, like, what are you guys using and how's that been? Like, I know do you have enough or?
So,
always could use more. Our fan problem is our seating problem. And we beg, borrow, and steal the bleachers throughout both communities, which you guys have assisted in moving last year. You helped out.
So where do you get them from though? Like, do you know offhand or?
All over the place. We used to take from the Egg Society grounds. We have one guy that kind of takes care of all the bleacher stuff.
Ardmore.
Like, we had some built there, right, or is that the ones you guys
We have
then?
used those.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's one of the, not really a complaint we get, but the feedback we get from spectators often is, not the bleachers. It's a good problem, but it's also not a good problem.
Yeah, I've been there and, yeah, it's a little bit crowded or whatever, but
So one of our initiatives is look at, you've heard of the Cfap grants, what's available out there to look at? How do we fundraise for more bleachers? You know, we've been able to borrow all of these bleachers. What happens when we can't borrow the bleachers?
yeah, I think that, and this is kind of bigger picture, but I think there's, you know, a need for it, like, throughout the community and,
Community bleachers. for
yeah,
the-
like, that
the
we can
various
share
events, the
around.
Cattle shows, out at the ag.
So how
grounds, the
easy is it
ball-
to
yeah,
move
there-
those ones that you guys had to move out there? I've never seen it
It's a
moved.
pain.
Yeah, it's a
It
job,
is.
right? Like-
Unfortunately, this year, the MD helped us, you guys helped us tremendously. In 2019, we did it, and it was an absolute nightmare. It's very time-consuming.
Is that just because of how it's set up to move? Like, there must be
Because
some.
they're big.
Yeah.
They're big, and a lot of them were in kind of rough shape. We even had one of our guys spend a significant amount of his own time repairing them, because they just weren't you couldn't transport them.
And we've had some of the local contractors, the welding companies
Yep.
help us fix them and get them into usable shape so they're safety, but bleachers is a problem.
Yeah.
It's probably one of our number one on the event side for the spectators. If
Well-
it keeps growing, we're out of seats.
It's not only that, it's not like we can put them out there and just leave them out there. Obviously, Sunday night, they got to be out of there, right?
Yeah.
So it's, in the heat of the event, it's one of the biggest undertakings for us, is getting them there and then getting them out of there.
Yeah, for anybody that, our setup in the amount of time we have in the takedown, it's ridiculous. But we get it done. Like, there's just people power, right?
Yeah, all right.
Counselor Fadave?
Yeah, just, there's so many great things about this. It's probably one of the largest, regional economic drivers. We hear from, all the hotels and things like that, and there's probably about 16 people coming in from Edmonton just for the show, and probably more as far as I hear. Now that this is not in prime farming season, we will see a lot of our racing farmers come out as well, right? So there's lots of those out there. So again, one of the things I like is a large business buy-in by the community. The amount of names that are helping out. We even had Booster Juice there. They were serving burgers for the volunteers. It's fantastic. The involvement by the kids was huge. They're picking garbage. That was awesome to see. You don't often see kids picking garbage, even though they were voluntold to do it. But it's awesome. Again, I love to see this going on for next 5 years or 6 years. I would love to see the support from our council for that. I'd like to make a motion here since I don't know if you guys remember that. I made the first motion for the regional airport when you guys first did your first pitch on that. I'd like to make the second one for us to consider a five-year plan to work with administration on that. I know there's a couple things that are going to be brewing up in the next year or so with the airport, but as long as they work together with administration on that, and I think Councillor Scarson was talking about maybe an involvement in bleachers. Were you?
Yeah, well, I got some ideas that I'm gonna spit around here, but I just think it's a little bit bigger than even the gear grabbers. It's something that.
Yeah, it's a community. It's
I think
large.
there has to be something there, right?
We're not the
So-
only ones who need bleachers.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Well, just not to take a whole bunch more time, but interesting, the food vendors that come out from the city that do the large festivals said, bar none, best event, best fans, best people, most sincere, polite people they've ever been to in their life, and beg to come back the next year.
Yeah.
We actually already have all our food vendors already lined up this year, because they called us. As soon as we announced the dates, our phones were ringing off the hook. It's been pretty awesome.
Counselor Slipchuk?
Yeah, I just want to say, I think you guys are doing a tremendous job of promoting our community, and we're going to have to discuss and look at what we can do to continue to support and make it even better and work with them. Because this is a great enjoyment for all of the people in our community and from outside.
Yeah, especially with the cost, right? That was the biggest thing. It is family friendly. It's $10, free for the kids, and it's a good way to get these kids hooked on racing. You know, it's,
Well, and we have a venue that it's available, and it's not like we're doing it every weekend. We have great support from the airport community out there. You know, there was some pushback at first, but now they've all got their lawn chairs out there, their hangar doors open, watching the drag race, and they're even monitoring the radios for us because they're there anyways. You know, like, there's some good buy-in. There's always gonna be some naysayers, but that's the world we live in. There always will be, but I think there's 90% more positives than there are negatives, so.
Okay, yeah, I wanted to comment on one car I heard about. I seen a picture of it. It's I think it's a Mercury.
Four-door?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Zephyr?
and it's like a family-looking car.
Yeah.
But someone told me that thing goes like
Yeah, in the
crazy.
quarter he runs 9s.
9s.
And he's actually, it's funny you bring him up. His name's Cam Watt. He's probably our biggest fan.
He is a cheerleader. He's going to come up the day before. He brings 6 to 10 cars up with him.
Yeah.
They're coming up to help us set up this year.
Oh,
because
really? Yeah, I just heard that car. It just looks like a family car and just, it rocks on her. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
he's also the guy with the red Mustang too.
Yeah, he owns that car too.
Okay, yeah. He knows what he's doing then.
He does.
Oh, wow. Someone came up to me in the restaurant on Sunday and they says, you need to build a facility for you guys. So like, it's like, wow. I'm going, okay, well, I'll see what we can do here, yeah. Anyway, any plans in the future of maybe making your own strip somewhere? I know that's like way out there, but I'm just, people think it's such a great thing that they think the MD should get involved. So I'm just.
So I would say maybe, you know, with the pandemic, you know, we went up really high, we dropped down, we've risen again. Where is that curve? You know, we're being honest.
Mm-hmm.
We think there's a long-term success there. And everybody wants us to do this every weekend.
Mm-hmm. It's
Well,
pretty tough.
that's a great idea, except
Yeah.
we're volunteers.
Yeah.
And it's a big deal. Could expand to some more dates and maybe, because there is nothing rurally in northern Alberta that offers drag racing, really. So it's something that you could spitball, but it's millions of dollars of spitballing for sure.
And keeping it sustainable would be a challenge.
Yes,
Financially.
sustainability, yes.
You know, Edmonton, they struggle.
To keep going, eh?
They do. Yeah. It's a great dream, but it would be a lot.
But it's interesting, the racers that come from Edmonton that race there consistently, the reason they love coming back here, they've never raced in front of that many fans ever.
So it's a big, I've only heard super positive. Yeah,
Yeah, you
everyone.
guys, if you haven't, you really should come check it out.
I've never been able to.
It's too bad you
attend,
didn't
yeah.
come for the one where the airplane landed, that would have really,
Yeah, Mr. Hogan.
Thank you, Mr. Reeve, members of the council.
Sorry.
Earlier this year, we were approached for the first time, and there was camping. That worked out very well. We worked with the gear grabbers in terms of how that was going to work out. I personally worked with the flying club in terms of how we were going to deal with the airport, both in the test and tune in June, which is a bit more difficult because we tried to keep the airport semi-open, and then we closed it for the actual event. We had probably a half a dozen dedicated staff the day before helping move the bleachers and removing the bleachers. I certainly, from my position, it would be helpful for us to have a long-term agreement so we could set dates in and kind of cement them in so we can build other events or other potential, airplane type stuff. I know the flying club would like to get back into fly-in breakfast and those kind of things. So a long-term contract. I don't worry in the contract about things like liability, the insurance coverage, the gear grabbers has looked after all that. For us, really, it's just an agreement to give them access on these dates for the next X number of years. They certainly have our full support administratively.
Awesome. So we have a motion that council accepts the presentation by the Bonnyville Gear Grabbers on planned events as information, and furthermore, that council directs administration to bring back additional information regarding their request for a long-term contract to the future meeting of council as directed. Any discussion on this motion? I see none. All those in favor? Carried. Good job, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Perfect, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Good job.
Yeah. How soon is our next, what time is it now? 10:30? Okay. We're on to 7.3. All right, planning and development? Nope, planning and community services? Lisa.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning.
So I have bylaw number 1794, the Development Authority bylaw. At the January 12th, 2022 regular meeting of council, council approved the redesignation of the md.bonnyville's Development Authority and Subdivision Authority from the Municipal Planning Commission to council. As a result, administration has drafted a new Development Authority bylaw for consideration. Bylaw number 1794, the Development Authority bylaw, will repeal and replace bylaw number 1122 and instead establish council as the Development Authority for the MD of Bonnyville. The Committee of the Whole reviewed this bylaw on February 16th, 2022 and recommended council approves the bylaw as presented. So we are recommending that bylaw number 1794, being a bylaw of the MD of Bonnyville, to establish the Development Authority of the municipality be given first reading.
Okay, thank you. Yes?
I'll go ahead and make that motion.
Okay, Councillor Crick makes the motion. That bylaw number 1794 being a bylaw of the municipality district of Bonnyville, number 87, to establish and develop authority to the municipality to be given first reading. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried, thank you. 732.
Okay, so bylaw number 1795 is the Subdivision Authority bylaw. As well, at the January 12th, 2022 regular meeting of council, council approved redesignating the MD of Bonnyville Subdivision Authority from the Municipal Planning Commission to council. As a result, administration has drafted a new Subdivision Authority bylaw for consideration. This proposed bylaw number 1795, the Subdivision Authority bylaw, will repeal and replace bylaw number 1123 and instead establish council as the Subdivision Authority for the MD of Bonnyville. The Committee of the Whole reviewed this bylaw on February 16th, 2022 and recommended council approves passing of the bylaw as presented. That bylaw number, we are recommending that bylaw number 1795, being the bylaw of the Municipal District of Bonnyville number 87, to establish the Subdivision Authority of the municipality be given first reading.
Thank you.
I'll make that motion that we give first reading.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Subject, for making that motion. That bylaw 1795 being a bylaw of the Municipal District of Bonnyville, number 87, to establish the subdivision authority of the municipality to be given first reading. Any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried, thank you. 733.
So bylaw number, it's a land use bylaw 573, amending the land use bylaw with the redesignation of the MD of Bonnyville's Development Authority from the Municipal Planning Commission to council. Bylaw number 1667, our land use bylaw, needs to be amended to reflect these changes. As a result, administration has prepared the necessary amendments to the current land use bylaw. The current land use bylaw refers to MPC frequently throughout the document as the municipality's development authority. The proposed bylaw number, LU 573, amends the land use bylaw to make it compliant with this change of development authority to council. Additionally, with the recent amalgamation of ID 349 lands into the municipality through the Province of Alberta Order in Council 121/2021, administration has also incorporated 2 new direct control districts for these newly acquired lands. These new districts allow for the same discretionary uses as is currently in the Improvement District 349 land use order. So administration is recommending that bylaw number LU 573 being a bylaw to amend the land use bylaw of the MD of Bonnyville's number 87 be given first reading, and furthermore, that council approves a public hearing date of March 23rd, 2022 at 10 a.m.
So we need 2 motions. Yes. Yes.
I'll make the first motion.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Crick, for making that motion. That bylaw number LU 573 being the bylaw to amend the land use bylaw of the MD of Bonnyville, number 87, to be given first reading. Any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried, and we need the second one. Yeah, Councillor Slip. Thank you, Councillor Slipchick. That council approves March 23rd, 2022 at 10 a.m. as the date and time for the bylaw LU 573 amending land use bylaw public hearing. Any discussion on this motion, gentlemen? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. Thank you, Lisa. 734.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Policy 3B.003, the MD's Recreation Facilities Policy. We have an amendment for your consideration today. Administration is proposing to amend this policy in response to the passing of the new master rates bylaw back in December. Now that the MD has consolidated its rates and fees within the new master rates bylaw, there are the rates and fees that are incorporated into this policy that need to be removed. While reviewing the policy, some small administrative revisions were also made. Attached for council's review in the appendix is the amended policy. Administration's recommended action today is that council adopts policy number 3B.003, MD Recreation Facilities Policy, as amended.
Okay, thank you. Just looking for a motion. Okay, thank you. Councillor Kraviak makes a motion that council adopts policy number 3B003, MD Recreation Facility Policy as amended. Any discussion on this? Motion, all those in favor? Oh, sorry.
Just
Yes.
a question for clarification. In there it says, under the Kinnessoo Ridge part, there's under H, it says all full-time permanent MD staff and council and their immediate family members shall be offered a discount of $50 per person for the ski hill and season passes.
Correct.
Is that always been in policy before, or is that a new addition?
It was, through the REAV, it was in policy previously. However, being that it was more pertaining to employees and council members, it was not included in our master rates bylaw. So it's a piece that is kind of separate, given that it's not out to the, it's not a rate that affects the public. It's a rate for an internal process.
Okay. Sounds good, thank you.
You bet.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried, thank you.
Thank you.
7, do we have time for, yeah. 735? Oh. We could, how long is yours, Bowen? Okay, let's take a break then. Thank you, Al. We'll break, and then we'll go into our next delegation. Okay, welcome back. We have another delegation here this morning, the Metric Group, LLP.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Do you know how long I have? Do I have an hour or 45 minutes? Or
10
anybody
minutes.
know? 15 minutes? I got to do a couple presentations. I want to make sure I'm talking fast enough to get through everything. Which one am I? Okay, I'll do council orientation. All right, well, thanks for having me. It's a little colder up here than it was in Edmonton on the way up, I can tell you that. My truck went from -22 to -30 on the way here. So anyways, thanks for having me. It's good to be here. I'm here today to do two presentations. I'll start with council orientation. So I'll discuss a bit of the finances for the MD, the Municipal Government Act, why we have an audit, go over some highlights, and then I can definitely take any questions, but kind of just a brief overview on finances when it comes to the financial statements and the municipal district. And then I also have another presentation for our audit planning report. So in that one, I'll go over our audit for the 2021 year, where we're at to date, areas of focus when I talk about risk at the MD, and areas of the financial statements of importance. And then I'll conclude that, and I can take any questions on that one at that time. So to start, council orientation. All right. So a bit of an agenda. I'll talk a bit about our firm. What our firm does, our audit team, I'll go over the session objectives, we'll talk about the Municipal Government Act, understanding of audits as well as reporting cycles, so what it means to set a budget, set your mill rates, what the financial statements at the end of the year mean in relation to that. A bit about Canadian auditing standards, public sector accounting standards, so those are the accounting standards that the municipality reports under. Same standards, the provincial government, federal government, so all governments report under the same framework. Where you see differences is publicly traded companies, they report under international financial reporting standards. Not-for-profits have their own framework, so it's, again, the presentation of the financial statements. Municipalities are definitely in a business of providing services, so their statements are geared more towards that, whereas international statements are more driven towards the shareholder value and profits. So some differences there. And then I'll go over a bit of the MD's financial statements and highlights from there. So in introductions, just go over a bit of credentials and background. So about our firm. So our firm has been in existence since 1962. In 2000 and I want to say maybe five years ago, we changed our name. We used to be called Hawkins F. Dumont. Changed our name to Metrics Group, sort of rebranded a bit there. So our name has three distinct components. Metrics meaning a system or standard to measure success. The letter X refers to solving for unknown variables and represents out-of-the-box thinking and advice. And then Group emphasizes collaboration, so between ourselves and our clients and working together. Our firm has an extensive background in the municipal sector, so we currently audit over 50 municipalities as well as 30 government entities, so such as recreation boards, wastewater, waste commissions, water commissions, local fire authority here, so other organizations that are report under public sector and are linked to other municipalities. So the metrics advantage, so really what you're getting from us, knowledgeable staff and commitment to communication. So myself and three of my other partners focus on the municipal sector during the year. So this time of the year we are spending a lot of time auditing municipalities. We have 20 plus staff that perform work in relation to municipalities. So again, it's a big component of our firm, and we do a lot of work there. Quality assurance, so we do maintain a quality control system within our firm. So each audit file does have a QC or quality control partner involved in it to make sure that we are meeting standards, not just internally but externally with the CPA while performing our duties for the MD. No surprise approach, so that's a big factor for us. We want to make sure that we are clearly communicating not just with management but also with council. So we're here today to discuss our audit planning approach, which I'll do after this meeting, which is really an introductory to our audit. And then at the end of the audit in April, when we come up to meet, we have what's called an audit findings report, where we discuss all the areas that we did focus on and then any other communications or conclusions from those results. So indicating any significant deficiencies or internal controls that we may have found while performing our work. And then our industry expertise. So again, as I said earlier, our team does work primarily with municipal clients, definitely from February to April. So our team not just audits one municipality, but they tend to audit about 4 or 5. So we do get a good understanding of the municipal sector and what it means to complete the audit for similar entities. Audit team, so myself, Jeff Alston, I'm the partner involved in this file. I've been, I think, the engagement partner for four years now. Prior to that, Michael Epp was the partner from our firm. He's still involved in our firm. He's still around, so he does perform a quality control review with me over the file at the end of the year. So he is still involved in the smaller manner. For myself, I guess I have quite a few municipal clients, so although the MD is a client, I spend a lot of time in this region auditing other municipalities such as Lac La Biche, it's another client, and then up into the city as well. So again, a lot of time up in the community here. Craig Pater, he's the manager of the file. He's been working on the file for 6 years. Definitely has an extensive knowledge and background of the MD, all the way from when he first started articling to becoming a CPA, and been the manager for a few years. So again, a lot of understanding and experience when it comes to the MD's processes. So that's just a bit about our firm. I'll go over kind of with the orientation and some session objectives. So Municipal Government Act requirements, I'll go through those briefly. What an audit is, so the importance of it. Canadian auditing standards and public sector standards. And then I'm going to spend a bit more time on some key financial indicators in municipal financial statements. So what does your statement of financial position mean? Net financial assets, statement of operations, accumulated surplus, and reserves. So those will be the main components of your financial statements. So when it comes to the Municipal Government Act, really the municipality is required to prepare annual financial statements in accordance with public sector accounting standards. The municipality is required to disclose municipalities' debt limits within the MGA Act, prepare a financial information return, appoint an external auditor, and then annual audit of the financial statements by council and the FIR to be presented or made public by May 1st. So those are the requirements set out by the MGA. As auditors, we report directly to council on the reasonability of financial statement results. So we will perform at the beginning our audit planning report, and then at the end our communication with our audit findings. Auditors are required to inform council of any improper transactions and activities that we become aware of, as well as any instances of non-compliance with legislation in relation to the Municipal Government Act. When it comes to the debt limits of the municipal district, so these are prescribed under the MGA, Alberta Regulation 255-2080. So your total debt limit for 2020 is $106 million. So this is the amount of debt that the municipal district would be allowed to borrow when it comes to your debt limits set out by the Municipal Government Act. Your total debt at that time is $12 million, leaving you with unused contribution rooms of $94 million. Your total debt limit is calculated based on 1.5 times your total operating revenue. So if you look at your statement of operations, which we will later, if multiply it by 1.5, that's the amount of debt that the MD would be allowed to have on its statement of financial position in accordance with the Municipal Government Act. Debt servicing limit is how much debt you're allowed to, hold or repay within the year. So your debt servicing amount last year was $1.1 million, leaving you a total amount debt servicing limit of 16.6 left. Debt servicing limit is calculated at 0.25 times your operating revenues as well. Understanding audits. So when it comes to understanding audits, I just wanted to start with the reporting cycle. And when it comes to reporting cycle, initially the strategic plan, which is set out by yourselves, councillors, and management. So what are the goals of the municipality? What are the service level targets of the municipality? This is where you're setting your strategic plan for the services that you're going to track and spend throughout the year. Your corporate plan, the second stage, is then really your financial plan. So how do you achieve these goals? How do you achieve these targets that you're trying to get? And then at the end, your financial reporting and audits. So when it comes to the end game, when we look from January 1 to December 31, this is where your year-end financial reporting is providing you with how much was spent in each department, revenues that were generated, and then showing you what your actual results are compared to your budget. So you get, a report showing where you were over budget or under budget and how you achieve those goals or strategic plan that you initially set out in the beginning. An audit is defined, what an audit is and what an audit is not. So what an audit is reasonable assurance that the financial statements are free from material misstatements. So it's not absolute assurance. So we do not give an opinion that we audit every transaction that happened in the year. What we're saying when we perform an audit is that your financial statements are free from a material misstatement. So a material misstatement is driven by us as auditors determining the users of the financial statements and a range of where we feel that the use of the financial statements would not have a change of opinion on the end results. So that could be anywhere from $1 million, $2 million, depending on the size of the entity, where you look at your surplus. If it were to change by X amount, you would still feel that the results of the year were the same either way. So that's where reasonable assurance versus absolute assurance differs. We are limited to financial information. We are reliant upon the assertions made by administration and to the accuracy, completeness, and appropriation of financial results, as well as the elements of an audit. So the risk assessment, calculation materiality, test of controls. So we do assess controls in the municipality. We audit those. We take reliance on them when we can be relied upon. Test the details. In that case, we're looking at areas or looking at specific documents. We're sending out external confirmations to confirm values. Those are the type of procedures that we perform to ensure that the financial statements are free from material misstatement. And again, our audit is evidence-based, so what we obtain as information is the evidence we use in order to provide our conclusion. Canadian auditing standards. So here is where I'll just go over just a few sections here. So Canadian auditing standards, section 200 indicates objectives of an audit. And the objective of the audit is to enhance confidence of those relying on the financial statements. So those users being yourselves as counselors, that we are presenting a financial statement. Again, that's free from material misstatement that you can then take reliance on that these numbers are accurate and not misleading. Other users of the financial statements, province of Alberta, municipal affairs, ratepayers within the MD, so those that would have a vested interest in the financial results. As auditors, we obtain reasonable assurance the financial statements are free from material misstatement. As well, auditor applies professional judgment and professional skepticism. So again, we are held to a standard within our CPA Institute, again, to make sure that we are applying professional judgment and skepticism while performing our work. CAS 240, auditor responsibility with respect to fraud. So here, risk of non-detection is greater than risk of error. Risk of management fraud is greater than risk of employee fraud. So we do consider fraudulent financial reporting, such as intentional error or misappropriation of assets being theft. Prevention and detection of fraud is manager's responsibility with council oversight, though, while performing our audit. So if we do find anything during our audit, we definitely bring that forward. But again, it is prevention and detection of fraud is management's responsibility with council oversight. CAS 260, communication with those charged with governance. So here in our auditing standards, we want to promote two-way communication. So again, we are here to present our audit plan, and at the end we present our audit findings. And we also do have an open line of communication. So on my report for my audit planning, I do have my email address on their phone number. If there are any issues or concerns from council, please feel free to email me directly with those type of questions or concerns that you may have, so I may respond. Plan, scope, and timing of the audit, that's discussed in the audit planning report, and then again, the observations from our conclusions. Materiality on CAS 320, so this is based on assessment of the amount of misstatement that would change the decision user. So again, yourselves as councillors, municipal affairs, province of Alberta, our materiality is based on a certain percentage, and if, again, if the financial results or annual surplus would have changed by that amount, yourselves as a user might have a different view on the ending results. And this has also reduced our uncorrected and undetected errors to an appropriate low level. So when it comes to materiality, there's a few levels. We have an overall materiality. We also have a performance materiality. So we say that although our materiality is 1 million, if we have errors that exceed a certain amount, say 750,000 or 75%, we may not issue an opinion on the financial statements. We may want to see changes made to those results in order to get that amount to a lower level, in order to indicate that there are no misstatement within the financial statement. So although we do set a materiality at a certain level, we also set other indicators below that to make sure that the financial statements are free from material misstatements. When it comes to public sector accounting standards, the Public Sector Accounting Board, it is an independent body that sets accounting standards for all public sector bodies in Canada. So again, all municipalities follow the same accounting framework across Canada, not just in Alberta. Accounting standards ensure high quality of information provided to decision makers. So again, accountability, comparability, and consistency, so you can compare yourselves amongst your peers within the province and across Canada as everybody follows the same accounting framework. Understanding financial statements. So financial statement objectives really to aid in understanding government operations, promote accountability, so comparison to budget and actuals, communicates the cost of services provided to residents, so expenses by object and by function, so which departments it's being in, as well as it being spent on materials or salaries and wages, and then assess the changes in the financial position. So here on this slide, you'll see a snapshot of the municipal district's statement of financial position as at December 31, 2020 compared to 2019. So these are taken directly from your financial statements. Some key areas, that you, as councillors you might want to be aware of when it comes to your financial assets, receivables, so taxes and grants in place of taxes, trade and other receivables. Are these amounts deemed to be collectible? Is there a concern there that there's tax receivable at year end, that someone isn't paying or have multiple years of uncollectability, or is the property associated with that tax amount? If you were to take it over, would you be able to recover the taxes owing? So those have been areas of concern the last handful of years with the downturn in the economy, and making sure that taxes are being collected, other receivables are being collected, or do you have adequate security on those receivables? When it comes to your financial assets, total is 111 million, mainly made up of investments and cash on hand. Liabilities, so this indicates 30 million to be spent. An area there, deferred revenues are almost at 2 million. So what deferred revenue is that's grant funding that you would have collected during the year or prior to that is still earmarked for a project yet to be complete. So again, you kind of want to make sure that when it comes to deferred revenue, that those projects in the future are being spent, and that those funds that are allocated are then recognized as revenue once costs are incurred. Long-term debt is at 12 million, so with the province of Alberta, debentures there to make up that balance. And then landfill closure, post-closure liability of 2.3 million. So this is an estimate of what it would cost to cap and reclaim the landfills within the municipal district as at today. So that cost does increase or decrease over time. It's an estimate, so it does factor in inflation as well as lending rates, and as well as when the landfills are expected to close. So that number can change. In the past, it has been pretty consistent in the estimates, but again, that's another area there where potentially more costs could happen. Leaves you with net financial assets of 80.6 million. What your net financial asset position is telling you is that you do have sufficient financial assets in order to repay your liabilities and be left with 80.6 million at the end of the day if all your liabilities were paid off as at December 31, 2020. So again, the municipal district is in a good financial position. And then your non-financial assets. So your non-financial assets being your tangible capital assets, which were at 280 million. So this is made up of your roads, water sewer lines, other infrastructure, machinery and equipment that's used within the municipal district in order to provide services to the residents, so those that live within the MD. So again, roads, machinery and equipment, graders, vehicles, administration, buildings, so those used in order to run the MD. Inventory for consumption was at 34.5 million. This is mainly made up of your gravel stockpile and pits, so that was the cost value of that gravel as at December 31, and these pits are measured annually to ensure that the amount there is reflected based on engineering reports. Left you a total non-financial assets of 317 million and a total accumulated surplus of 398 million. So this is a snapshot of where the MD was at as at December 31, 2020. On this slide here, just a bit discussion for considerations here. So when your financial assets exceed liabilities, the municipality does have sufficient assets to repay debts. Considerations, so trends in net assets versus earned revenue over time. So are you over, potentially under or overtaxing depending on your accumulated surplus position? Balance of net assets compared to liabilities, and what is council's philosophy with respect to net assets, and how does that translate into budgets and plans? Statement of operation. So this is kind of hard to see here, but really this is outlining your revenues and expenses. So really the services provided during the year. So how much money or revenue was generated by the municipality. So your main revenue stream being your net municipal taxes. So where the residents are paying, residents, businesses are paying taxes to the municipal district in order to provide the services or operating services within the year. So total revenue generated, 71 million. Total expenses was close to that at 70 million, left you with an annual surplus before other income of $1 million. After that, you look at your other income. These are costs or grants that are used for capital purchases, a total 11.5 million, and left you with an annual surplus last year of 12.5. So I think the main thing here I just wanted to note is in the net municipal taxes, although you are taxing, to generate 60 million, definitely want to think about collectability of those taxes. So, is there any areas of concern where potentially collectability could be an issue? Although you're taxing for 60 and you are budgeting to spend 60, if you end up getting less than that, then you end up spending money from other areas that you're not expecting to. So in the MD, it has been very steady still over the years. I have had some other clients where some oil companies have gone under within their areas, which caused shortfalls of excess, millions of dollars in cash being collected. So services were provided and that money was earmarked, but it was never collected. So again, those are just some things to think about, some questions to ask, just to make sure that you are collecting what you're expecting to be receiving when it comes to budgeting for services to be rendered. So after that, we look at your accumulated surplus. So accumulated surplus really breaks down into three categories. You have your unrestricted surplus, restricted surplus, and your equity and tangible capital assets. So your restricted surplus, is made up of your operating reserves as well as your capital reserves. So this is where you earmark additional funds that you would have received in the year in order to be spent on projects in the future. So whether those be road projects, equipment purchases, whatever additional items that are within the budget that have been earmarked by council to be spent. Unrestricted surplus, these are funds that the municipality would have received that have not been earmarked for a future project. So this amount usually ends up being small, and then once the amount of money is determined what it's going to be spent on, usually transferred into restricted reserves or spent within the year. And then your equity and tangible capital assets. So this is how much money has been spent in relation to equity and TCA, and that amount of money or that component of the accumulated surplus is tied up within your physical assets. So within your roads, within your machinery equipment, within your buildings, already spent and reflected in those assets. So this slide here kind of just indicates accumulated surplus on the left-hand side. So as projects are funded, your accumulated surplus decreases. And then as you budget for transfers in, plus budget interest in, your reserves increase. Equity and TCA, you see a decrease there when it comes to amortization, when you pay debt proceeds associated with assets, as well as costs of disposals. And then you see it increase when you purchase new assets, debt repayments, and then accumulate amortization. So that causes your equity and TCA to increase. This slide here just kind of reserves as a planning tool. This is kind of just a very generic example, but in essence, in year one, you're looking to save $2,500. In year two, you start with $2,500. You budget to save an additional $2,500. This gets you to a balance of $5,000. When you start year three, you have an opening balance in that reserve of $5,000. You're looking to save an additional amount of money to be spent on a future project. Gets you up to a closing balance of $8,500. And then in year four, additional money to come in as well. So then over the years, as you earmark to budget, to plan to save for this project, in year 5, you then spend the money on the big purchase or of 9,000, and then you have the money already earmarked in your reserves saved to be spent on the project. So again, reserves does act as a planning tool if you are looking to do future projects and how you collect those amounts over the year in order to be spent on a project. When it comes to your accumulated surplus, currently as of December 31, 2020, you had unrestricted surplus of 16.9 million, a restricted surplus of 110 million. So that was made up of a cash flow surplus, general equipment replacement, and then other. And then your equity and tangible capital asset, 271 million. So it left you with an accumulated surplus total of 398. So in summary, financial position, your financial assets exceed the debt, so municipality is in a position to repay all of its liabilities, so that's good. Receivables, collectability has become an issue across the province, so again, just make sure that you're aware of that and asking some questions when it comes to the collectability of receivables. Operations, so your municipal taxes is the main funding source for the MD. So you may want to discuss provision for uncollectible taxes. So again, if you do deem that there are other organizations or businesses in the community, just want to make sure that those are being collected. And then amortization. So the municipality does have sufficient revenue to fund the use of its assets, so allowing the municipality to save cash to replace future assets. So what that means is when you have, say, a grader, it lasts 5 years. When you purchase this grader for X amount of dollars, 1/4 or 1/5 of that grader gets expensed into your operations. So if you end up at a surplus every year in relation to having amortization as an expense, you would then have saved enough money to replace that grader from your operations and purchase a new one to be amortized for another 5 years. So that means that you do have sufficient revenue to meet the requirements to replace your assets. Tangible capital assets, so budget exceeds actual. So this means that funds are moved to reserves to be spent later. You know, when it comes to this, you know, sometimes you want to think how much can a municipality spend on capital projects in a year. Sometimes I've seen where there's a lot of, you know, carryover, or it's not a big summer, not a good summer for construction work. And then you're looking to do those projects next year, but you've also budgeted for a bunch of new projects in addition to that. And then it ends up, you know, you end up not being able to get all the things done, although everybody wants to. So again, just another thought there. And then accumulated surplus, so your reserves. So the municipality does have sufficient cash to fund its reserves. So with that said, that's kind of the it for the council orientation component. So I don't know if anybody has any questions or concerns that they might have.
They're kind of quiet today.
Yeah, that's okay. Accounting's not a very exciting topic anyway, so. All right. Hopefully this one will be a bit more interesting. All right. Am I able to scroll on this one, or how does this work? Sure. Okay, yeah, if you can, yeah, would you mind? Sure, yeah. All right, so this is our audit planning report. So spoke a bit just about the reporting cycle. So this is the beginning of the audit. So we're here today to just present the audit plan and then to take any questions that you may have as counselors at this time. So the next page just outlines a table of contents. On the left-hand side, you'll see there, again, phone number, email, if you ever need to get in touch with me. That is the way to do it. When it comes to sort of table of contents, executive summary. So the purpose of this report is really to promote two-way communication between ourselves and yourselves as counselors. So we want to provide an overview of the plan, scope, and timing of the audit. obtain from council information relevant to the audit. So when it comes to services to be provided, so we'll perform an audit of the municipality's financial statements, where we'll give assurance that the financial statements are free from material misstatement. We also prepare and certify the municipal financial information return. We do an audit on the compliance with the municipal district's local authority pension plan program, as well as perform an annual review of the municipality's family community support services, which is another government program where additional reporting is required. When it comes to materiality in planning our audit, we conducted or concluded that a materiality level of 3% of operating expenses is to be appropriate, so I'll talk a bit about that later. When it comes to our audit approach, we're going to use what's called a combined approach. So a combined approach means that we are going to assess your internal controls, so we are going to document and see if there's any reliance that we can take on those. We will then test them and take reliance, as well as perform additional substantive procedures when it comes to test the details, so sending out a confirmation, looking at invoices in particular, performing reasonability tests to make sure that, again, financial results are free from material misstatement. We have our audit fees in here, which were quoted in our proposal a couple years ago. And then on the next slide here, we have our responsibilities. So our responsibilities, so it's important for council to understand the responsibilities that rest with the municipality and its management and those charged with governance. So our responsibility as auditors is to perform an audit in accordance with Canadian generally accepted auditing standards. So those auditing standards are the same across Canada, so whether you're a publicly traded company or municipality, all the auditing standards are the same. We are then going to provide financial statements and give an opinion that the financial statements are presented in accordance with Canadian public sector accounting standards. So accordingly, we plan to perform our audit to provide a reasonable assurance that the financial statements are free from material misstatement. And then responsibility of those charged with governance. So management is responsible for the preparation and fair presentation of the financial statements and for such internal controls as management deems necessary. Those charged with governance, council is responsible for overseeing the municipality's financial reporting process. And then after reviewing this report, please advise us whether there are any additional areas or concerns to council which we should consider while performing our audit. When it comes to materiality, materiality is based on the users, again, of the financial statements. So yourselves as councillors, Province of Alberta Municipal Affairs to be the main users. So planning the materiality, so based on prior year results, our planned materiality or benchmark would be $2.1 million. So that might sound like a large number, but we saw earlier in your financial statements, if your annual surplus is $13 million and your budget for operations is 70, including capital over 100, a $2 million swing in the annual surplus, we feel would not have an effect or difference to or opinion of a user within the financial statements. From there, we use performance materiality, which is 75%, so 1.575 million. So if we were to have any unrecorded misstatements within our audit that totaled that amount, we would be hesitant to sign off on the audit report, and we'd probably be looking for adjustments to be made in order to reduce that amount. So when we do perform an audit, we do find things that have variances of smaller amounts. Sometimes they're corrected, sometimes they aren't. They go onto a list. If that list of material or that list of misstatements exceeds these amounts, we would not issue our financial statements, and we'd be looking for changes to be made before that would happen. So that's kind of an indication of what the materiality benchmark means. And then we have trivial thresholds. So this is areas where we'll have a misstatement below a certain amount while performing our work, and we would deem that not be sufficient to report on our unrecorded misstatements to council at year end. So on the next slide here, this is our planned scope of our audit. So this is where we indicate areas of focus, why it matters, and then our response to that. So areas of focus, management override of control. So this is an area where management's in a unique position to manipulate or adjust the financial statements by making journal entries to them. So whether they're increasing revenue or decreasing expenses in order to manipulate results, usually in a way not necessarily to increase the bottom line, but to be in compliance with budget. So in our response there, we do use data analytic tools where we run a program that's combs through the general ledger to look for odd or unusual journal entries that are posted, say, on the weekend, in the evenings, to specific accounts, entries that may be deemed to be unusual in nature, and then we do perform work over those journal entries to make sure that they are within adequate business needs. So we don't just look at large amounts. We're looking at we're trying to detect potential for error or for fraud when it comes to journal entries. Revenue recognition is another key area of focus here. There's risk there that revenue is being recognized prematurely. So you are getting the money, recognizing the revenue, but you have not yet provided the external restrictions or the services attached to that money. So while doing that, we want to update our understanding of the MD's policies when it comes to revenue recognition. We want to ensure that the external restrictions are being met on that revenue, so we want to test that. We want to examine all related agreements that is tied to restricted money, and where possible, we're going to perform procedures over deferred revenue and match costs associated with those projects to make sure that they are recognized correctly. So there's a lot of work that is done to make sure that the revenue recognized within the financial statement is accurate and complete at year end. On the next slide here at the top, it talks about net municipal taxes. So net municipal taxes, I spoke to earlier, that being your main funding source. There is a risk there that the municipality has not assessed the taxes based on the rates approved by council or at the correct assessment of value. So we definitely want to verify those, as well as ensure that the over-under levy calculation is correct at year end, so that the school and seniors requisitions are paid correctly going forward. So our response there is we do obtain third-party evidence for the assessment values, as well as the mill rate, so in relation to the bylaws, and then we do recalculate the over-under levy to make sure that it's accurate at year end. Operating expenses, so there's inherent risks there with fraudulent expenses being recorded, so our expenses being recorded that are not in relation to municipal district spending limits or within the budget. So we want to look at those to make sure that expenses have been approved and that they are actually municipal district expenses. Salaries, wages, and benefits, risks from an audit standpoint there is that you have employees that potentially don't exist and that you're paying for, and that there's a potential there for fraud within that area. So we want to perform tests of controls, procedures to make sure that there is evidence that employees do exist and that they also are being paid the correct rates that have been approved within their personnel file. So we do perform tests over that work to ensure that, again, salaries, wages, and benefits are accurate at year end. Cash and temporary investments, as well as your investments, those are large amounts on your statement of financial position. So when it comes to that, could be risk that the balances are not accurate at year end. So we do send third-party confirmations to make sure those are accurate, as well as recalculate your bonds, premiums and discounts, accrued interest to make sure those are accurate. The next area of focus from an audit standpoint is your receivables. So I spoke to this earlier. Collectability is a big concern. So we want to make sure that receivables are being collected. So we do look at the amounts collected subsequent to year end. So January, February, March, and April. So when receivables have been collected, it's a lot easier to deem that they are valid and expected to be collected at year end. So we do work subsequent to year end on that. Inventory. Inventory is a big number for the municipal district. Definitely a key area of focus here where potential for error. So we do get third-party evidence regarding the gravel pits at the MD, where they do measure them to make sure that they are accurate and that the amount of tonnage there is based on their measurements, so that the amount at year end is accurate related to the financial statement. So again, this is an area definitely where estimates are involved. The use of a professional engineer to measure pits could cause some variances there, but again, the reliance on the third party there is important to make sure that the financial statements are not misleading. Tangible capital assets, so there exists risk here from an audit standpoint that you've expensed items that should be capital, or as well you've recorded items that are in capital that should be expensed. So we do a lot of work in this area to make sure that the amounts recorded within the TCA additions are accurate. So a lot of work looking at specific invoices the capital budget for the MD. We also recalculate your amortization expense, gain loss, and discussion with management as to any valuations or impairment when it comes to assets that should be written off. So again, another area, larger amount of the statements for the MD, and a lot of work involved in making sure that that's accurate. On the next page here, other key areas, accounts payable and accrued liabilities. So we want to make sure that services rendered in the 2021 year have been correctly recorded in 2021, and those in 2022 have been recorded in 2022. So we do work subsequent to year end, so January, February, March, where we look at purchases that were made to make sure that they are recorded in the correct period. So sometimes we'll find invoices in January, February for services rendered in December that have not been accrued for. So we want to make sure that those are being accrued for and that they're in the correct fiscal year. Landfill closure and post-closure liability. Again, this is another area where there's a lot of estimate involved when it comes to looking at the amount of cost it is to cap and reclaim landfills within the municipal district. So we want to assess the mathematical accuracy. You do have a working paper involved in that, looking at inflation rates, lending rates to make sure that that is a fair representation of where the liability is at to date. And then long-term debt. We want to make sure that that's accurate. So again, a confirmation with the province of Alberta, and then we want to recalculate the interest expense and principal reduction and make sure it's accurate. So when it comes to municipal district, these are the areas that we tend to focus on that are high importance to the financial statements to make sure that they are accurate and not materially misstated. At the bottom of this page, request of council, so please advise us whether there are any additional areas of concern to council which we should consider. This includes any instances of actual elected or suspected fraud that potentially you may be aware of. So again, please feel free to use my contact information that you saw there on the first page. On the next slide here, timing of the audit. So we began our planning of the audit in October. We began our initial risk assessment, sending out interim audit requests. We performed our intern audit in November. November when we were up here at the MD office performing work there. We began our work on internal controls, updating any processes, our risk assessment in order to begin the year-end work, which will commence next week in March. So we'll be up on site here from March 1st to the 4th, completing year-end work. And then in April, we'll be here to report at the end of the month to go over our findings. Those areas of audit focus that I spoke on earlier, I'll address all those again. I'll let you know if there's any significant findings or results within those areas that you need to be aware of while performing our work. And then at the end of April, submission to Municipal Affairs, and then we will debrief with management and council in early May if we need to onto any future audit impacts after our meeting. So the engagement team, I spoke to this earlier, but myself and Craig, we've both been involved in the municipal district audit for many years. And then on the next slide, Appendix 1 of the report. So here we just discuss quickly our independence. So we are independent of the municipal district. We do not have an economic dependence or a vested interest in the municipal district. Our engagement letter is attached here if anyone needs to look at that, but we'll get that signed by the Reeve. And I do believe the CAO for our file there. Management representation. So this comes at the end of the audit where we get management to sign a representation letter that all information was forthcoming and that we received everything that we need in order to complete our work. And then communication of results. So this is where our audit findings report comes into place. So when it comes to our audit findings report, we'll discuss matters to communicate to council under Canadian Generally Accepted Auditing Standards. So any possible fraudulent activities, possible illegal acts, significant weaknesses in internal controls, any certain related party transactions. So this is where we provide that in that report. Our views about significant aspects of your financial statement, so your accounting policies, accounting estimates, statement disclosure, making sure that's all in accordance with public sector accounting standards, and any other matters from our audit that we feel would be necessary for council to know. So again, that'll all come with our audit findings report. And then on the next slide on Appendix 2, new and revised accounting standards. So these are new accounting framework standards that are coming into place for December 31, 2023. The main one here, which I'll speak to at year end in a bit more detail as I did last year, would be asset retirement obligations. So this is an area where the public sector accounting standards are being required to report liabilities, legal liabilities for asset retirement cleanup. So when we're thinking of this, you're thinking of potentially like asbestos in a building. If you have asbestos in a building, you're now required to identify an estimate what it would cost to clean that up and report that liability on your statement of financial position. So again, there could be additional work involved with management within the MD in order to identify potential areas where a liability or legal liability exists in order to get an estimate done so that this amount can be recorded on the municipal district's books for December 31, 2023. So again, we'll be in discussions with management definitely over the summer to make sure that work is being started on that, so that when it comes to the year or 2 years from now, that the information is available so that we can ensure that completeness of asset retirement obligations section was performed and that the liabilities are on the books. And with that said, then Appendix 3 is just a copy of the engagement letter, and that's it for my presentation for the audit plan. I don't know if anybody has any questions or concerns on that.
Pretty quiet. Well, thank you for your presentation.
Yeah,
I think
no problem.
we'll take like a 5-minute break.
All right.
Some things signed right now?
No, they can be emailed to me later whenever it's convenient. Yeah, it's no big deal. But thanks for having me. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to email me. I could definitely get back to you through that means of communication. Yeah. All right, and I'll see you guys in April. All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Take a 5-minute
Can we
break.
make a motion first?
Yeah, we need a motion. Yeah, again.
Yeah, I'll make that motion that we accept his presentation.
Twice that I turn on. All right, Councilor Scarson makes a motion that council accepts the presentation by Metrics LLP on financial orientation and the audit planning recorded as information. Any discussion on this? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Thanks.
We'll take a 5-minute break now.
You out with this RFD on the 2022 drainage project priorities map and kind of our operational drainage plan for the 2022 season. In January 2021 council committee meeting, Infrastructure Services presented council with a map depicting the drainage issues within the MD. The map outlined the priority locations along with the criteria for evaluating the priorities. Infrastructure Services has updated this map for 2022 and is attached as Appendix A. Now, just of a note, I think council did have an opportunity at the beginning of last year to provide some input on some additional locations on this map. I think it was April or May we came back to council with the finalized version. It's always been a work in progress. Council has directed administration to bring forward a phased-in construction plan for the 2021 drainage map. This was presented to council and accepted at the February 10th, 2021 council meeting. Appendix B outlines the progress of that plan. Infrastructure Services has reviewed the remaining projects and has compiled a project plan for 2022, which includes 12 projects scheduled. This work plan has been developed based on feasibility of the projects that can be delivered in 2022. Appendix C outlines the project plan for 2022. The drainage project priority list is attached as information in Appendix D. I guess goal is regarding a sustainable infrastructure that meets the needs of the community, and our objective is to create a 5-year plan to correct and mitigate prioritized flooded area based on agreed upon criteria. Reference applicable Alberta Environment and Protection and Department of Fisheries and Oceans regulations. Costs are part of the operating annual Infrastructure Services operating budget, and that we're recommending that council approves the 22 drainage project priorities map as presented. They would have the option to do that, or they could ask us to come back with additional information after some feedback.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Now, the overall map, just for everybody's information, it's just intended to track issues and problems that our maintenance foremen have been aware of over the years, and as well as additional locations that council has become aware of and asked us to add to it. It tends to be kind of filler work between our snow clearing work, our flooding emergency response work, and our road construction and maintenance work. So that's what we'll go out and we'll clear out ditches, and we'll reestablish them and clear brush out and that sort of thing.
Thank you, sir. Councillor Fadev?
Hey, good morning. Thanks for this. Just a couple clarifications things for me. In regards to Country Lane and Countryside, in Appendix D, it says something different than what Appendix C says. So Country Lane, Countryside shows that in line number, site number 32, that, so will the bid be resubmitted? And when is that gonna get done?
I believe Brian's intention is to retender that, because it is a capital project. It
Yeah.
isn't showing on Appendix C, which tends to be more our operational work.
Okay,
And so I know we had tendered it last fall, and there wasn't a lot of response, and the low bidder at the time wasn't compliant anyways, so we discussed and we decided to retender in 2022.
so
here,
would you know when the retendering is gonna get processed this year? Since it's gonna be a
I'm gonna have to
cut
come
and
back to
paste.
you with that one. That's
Okay.
one of Brian's projects
Okay.
there, and
Sounds good. And then just clarification on line number 18, map ID 57, into regards to the Marie Lake subdivision. So there was some engineering that was done. What kind of engineering? And because I know there's no approvals, we don't own any of the ditches yet, or any of the drainage, possible drainage
we had-
solutions. So, go ahead.
Sorry, we had a consultant in there at the end of last year having a look, more of at a strategic level, to assess the drainage and identify opportunities for future drainage work. They prepared a report on that, or I don't think we have the finalized version yet.
Okay.
But we did have an open house on that so the community could provide feedback on that. No further work beyond this report is planned at this time.
Okay. Sounds good. Thanks. Thanks very much.
Yes, Councillor Craig.
Yeah. The drainage on Barrier Lake, just east of town here, that's number 60 on the list. And I see that it's the red is low priority, and I would say that should be like a bright neon green is the highest priority, because there's people's basements that are flooding because of that water being too high. And my understanding is it's a short project that's not going to be too intense to get that to drain, just has to probably get some approvals.
I guess when we categorized all these concerns, we're trying to look for methodology on how to prioritize, and what we had come up with at the time was that anything showing up as a high priority would be something directly related to MD infrastructure. Either our infrastructure was being damaged by the drainage issue, or our infrastructure was causing the drainage issue due to a lack of maintenance. Anything that was showing up either as purple or red tended to be more of an issue that wasn't the MD's direct issue, but it might be an opportunity for the MD to step in and help out a group of residents if it was something that was beyond their capability to handle. And usually those would be areas where it would be council or the CAO would provide direction to us to go after those ones. We wouldn't, on our own initiative, go after those, because there's often higher level questions on whether we should be working in there or not. But that one there, we could have a relook at it as far as how it's categorized there. I'm not that familiar with it, but I can talk to our area maintenance foreman and get some more information and make sure that it has got the correct categorization on it.
Yeah, I'm okay with approving this as long as that one's bumped up to a higher priority level.
Mr. Reeve, members of council, we prioritize the drainage projects based on the protection of MD infrastructure. If council wants to change that priority, absolutely, but we'll be confused if we're going to bounce around between infrastructure to protecting community residences, to protecting individual property. So I would just ask council, if we want to bump stuff around and move stuff around, what is MD priority? MD infrastructure or somebody's private property? Barrier Lake is a massive body of water that us fixing the outflow is not going to change Barrier Lake going up or down. It's going to do what it's going to do. But for me, the bigger question is, we priorities based on, is it protecting our road? Is it protecting our culvert? Is it protecting our ditch? Is it protecting our shop? And if council wants to change those priorities, absolutely. But I would like to know what the priorities are then, because we can't build a map just guessing on who or what wants to do who or what at any given time. We prioritize this very specifically on infrastructure. So I'll leave that to council to determine what the priorities are, but that will be, and the other thing as well is, these are done internally, these aren't contracted out. So these are done when we have, as Mr. Hunkala said, these are done based on opportunities when we have some downtime, et cetera, et cetera. That's why there's 12 here this year that we're talking about. Last year we had 12 originally. We ended up bumping it to 18. That's what we completed last year. And so we're starting at 12 this year, and if there's opportunity to do more than 12, we certainly will.
Yeah, there are some of that 12 that are this year that are actually carryover from last year. We had a good spring last year. The fall, winter ended up, because of the amount of snow, we didn't have as much opportunity to do drainage work as we'd hoped. And this spring is probably going to be another tough one, where we're probably going to be jumping from emergency snow removal to emergency flood control with very little gap in there.
Yeah, going to be a lot of water this spring.
Yeah.
A lot of snow. I think this list is more of a kind of a gauge than, you know, it's not like they're going to go do something without the council or the people that own the property knowledge, right? Because then you're going to have a lot of can of worms open up. Go ahead, Councillor Slipchin.
Okay, I just want to, like, for example, on number 15 of Appendix D, yeah. It says registered easement, licensed deposition, then there's no beside. That means there's no, it's not registered or nothing?
This is number 15 we're talking about?
Yeah.
Now, you have to forgive me, I just know the high-level details on that, but I'm remembering that there was a registered ditch established, and at some point, there was a subdivision that went in there, and that registration didn't get carried over to the subdivision. So in order to do work there, we'd have to get permission across private property, and that's, I believe, why it's showing as a red there.
Okay, because there's a lot, there's other ones in there I noticed that don't show registered. And talking from many years ago, councillors, old councillors that were on, that put these ditches in, they were registered. Is there a way we can get, what can be done to get these ditches registered, or so that we do maintain them? Because I believe it can cause troubles if we don't get them registered and we look after them, because some landowners are even talking about just the heck with it, blocking it off, and what's going to happen? We're going to have problems with farmers further up the line then. And like this spring even, last spring, there was one part there, a ditch, I know it was blocked. Well, it was hindering the infrastructure. One of our roads, it was flooding further up the line, right? So I was just wondering, like, and also, do we have like a maintenance program on removing trees in these drainage ditches, which is a big beaver factor, which costs us money as well?
Yep. And
plugging culverts. Sorry, thank you.
I know when we do the work there, that would be part of our work, is to kind of address if the ditch is getting overgrown. As far as the registration issue, I know there were a number of ditches dug in the past that may or may not have been registered, and of course we're kind of trying to piecemeal it these days based on historical information, as far as, well, this farmer felt that the government dug this ditch, and of course we don't have anything on the title, and we have an option to potentially negotiate an easement. It ends up happening on a piecemeal basis. As we go through this process through the years, hopefully we get better and better information as to what actually is registered here. I know on this list here, this is the best information we have available at this time. It doesn't mean it's all right. Yeah.
So, one more question, please.
Yeah.
So, say, if a landowner has an issue with, there's a drainage ditch going through his property, what's the time frame on them getting, action done, say? A year, 2 years?
It depends on our resources, the resources that are allocated to this. And as far as the number of issues out there, of course, the part of the purpose of this is to track all the issues and assign our resources. We've got about 88 issues on the list right now, and we've got 12 identified to go after this year. I know when we do go after locations, we'll sit down as a group and kind of identify what's our kind of our foreman's idea of what the highest priority and would, and then also feasibility of doing work. There's times where there's an issue and it's very difficult for us to do anything about it. And so we'll end up developing these work programs based on a combination of feasibility and need. We're triaging everything essentially. So if it's something that's showing as a red priority item, and I do sympathize because I've seen issues where farmers' fields are getting flooded, and it ends up being a case where we just have to pick where we're going based on the resources we have, and we have to kind of systematically come up with a process on how to triage that work. And it doesn't mean that council or the CAO doesn't have an opportunity to override and establish some priorities that are outside of kind of what we've done by default, but it would tend to be a higher level direction that would get us to action some of those items.
Thank you. Councillor Crick?
Yeah. I'm going to move the motion on option number 2 there that the council directs administration to bring back additional information regarding the 2022 drainage project priorities map to a future meeting of council as directed. So I think this one needs a little more thought. And if we bring it back here shortly, it'll be before the spring melt, and I think we can, if you guys have time, the staff can certainly do whatever drainage projects they want in the meantime, but I think this needs to be, we need to look at, as a council, we need to look at priorities of our drainage, I think.
Okay, Councillor Crick made a motion that council directs administration to bring back additional information regarding the 2022 drainage project priorities map to a future meeting of council as directed. Any discussion on this? Councillor Fadeev?
Yeah, just a quick question for Councillor Crick. What other thoughts are you thinking about? Because I think this is something that these guys have been dealing with for years. And, you know, they're the ones that are, you know, boots on the ground. And I think this is what our administration is thinking of. I think they have a pretty good idea of the issues that are out there.
Yeah.
I think it needs to get done, like, quick.
Councillor Crick?
Is this, are you wanting this list finalized right away so you guys can get out and start working on this drainage like right away here, or do we have a few weeks to?
I guess with this spring, probably we have the 2 items that we're probably going after this spring, assuming we're able to find some time to do it between the snow and the flood control. Would it be from last year's list? We'd already have approval on them. As far as the additional work that we've kind of identified, that's what this process is about, is to get some feedback from council. Yeah. On that list, and if there was additional locations that you guys would like us to look at adding, or that maybe you feel that we shouldn't be looking at, now would be the time to have some of those discussions. And I'm sure Brian is quite happy to come back at a future time, where we could do what we did last year and print out a map for you guys to kind of mark up for us to add some locations to the map if you'd like.
Yeah, I understand, I guess. Thank you for that, and I understand what our CEO is saying about our priorities for protecting our infrastructure. However, if we got 30 houses, I think there's 52 lots in that subdivision. Not everyone has a house on it yet, but their basements are all, their sumps run constantly because of the water in that Barrier Lake is up so high, and we're saying that's a low priority. That doesn't make sense to me. We got like 100 residents that are flooding out, and we're saying that some road out in the middle of nowhere is a higher priority than lowering the lake, protect our residents' houses, right?
Thank you, Mr. Members of Council. So the original map was brought to Council in February of 2021, and Council approved the map. So that original map was approved. So to Councillor Crick's motion, I would need some more information as to exactly what it is, the additional information the council would like to have back. We provided a map that was approved by council. We did a bunch of work last year, and today we were just indicating the work that is planned for this year. To the question about protection of municipal infrastructure over the protection of private property flooding, I guess that's going to be a question for council to grapple with as to what's council responsibility towards private property as opposed to council's responsibility towards municipal property. Yes, it might be a road out in the middle of nowhere that floods, but instead we go and deal with the basements. But what is our responsibility here, and I believe it's to our infrastructure, private property is private property. But I'll leave that to council to prioritize, because that, again, as I said earlier, I don't know what the priorities would be anymore. Do we completely redo the priority list and start with private property first, and then go to community property, and then we look after municipal infrastructure last? Or is this going to be, for lack of a better word, a shotgun approach where we just kind of look at the map and go, well, let's do this one and let's do that one? The priority list here in green is municipal infrastructure. That to me is what our responsibility is, and particularly as the CAO, I think that's what our responsibility is. But if council believes that there's a better way to do that, and I'll pull out a map and we should do this one, we should do that one, we should do this one, and okay. But then we'll bring it back to council every spring, and then council can pick which ones they would like to do, because there's no point in us prioritizing the work if we're not going to have a clear and ordered delineation of what the priorities are. Then we'll just bring back a map every spring, and council can choose. That's fine. I have no issue with that. But when the road floods.
Okay, is there any other discussion? Councillor
Yeah, I'm just
Scarson.
curious, so what is it that needs to be done over there? Like, it says $10,000 is allotted to it, so it doesn't sound like it's a lot of work, or what is it? Is it beaver dams, or what is the work even?
Now, which location are we talking about?
Number 60?
That's as far as the Barrier Lake location. I'm going to be honest, I'll have to come back to you on that. I've been involved more at the strategic level on this, the individual locations. Some locations I'm familiar with and some I'm not. That one I'm going to have to come back to because I'm not that familiar with it. I'll have to talk to our maintenance foreman on typically what happened as we sat down as a group. We kind of at a very high level discussed each of these locations, kind of what the issues were, what the impacts were, and threw a number at it just to kind of have an idea of an initial thought of what it might cost.
So you have A, B, C for priority levels. So is it fair to say then that Cs are never going to get done? Is that the thought then, or?
No, I would say more that Cs would require some higher level direction from the CAO or from council.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Rudd, I'd also point out, and it will take a little bit more digging, but number 60, the Barrier Lake question, that's a registered ditch that's owned and under disposition to the town of Bonnyville and not even to the MD. So that would require work with the town as well. That's not just as simple as us going out and doing something, but that registered drainage is, and I don't know the domino from that as to whether they become the owner, whether they're environmentally responsible for that, because they have under this list, they have the registered plan and the disposition is to the town.
And also, once she dumps where she's going, we got to know where that's happening, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Councillor Scarson.
So realistically, I mean, you can approve this list today and then bring back individual projects as they pop up at any time, right?
Yes.
I mean,
Oh, yeah. I mean, this has always been a work in progress, so it's, we're looking kind of for a green light to go ahead. And these 12 locations, the reality of it is the 12 locations are probably going to be more looked at in the fall than they are the spring because of the snow issue this spring. And we may or may not get them all done depending on other needs that come up. These are the locations that our environmental coordinator is going to go look at getting the approvals on so that we are ready to jump on when we do have crew availability to go after them.
yeah, I would guess that come spring, your phones will be ringing like they were for the snow in January, right? So.
Yeah,
Yes.
we're kind of.
And through the Reeve to council, I think it's also important, there are two different, and although sometimes they overlap, spring runoff and drainage are often not necessarily the same thing.
Yeah.
Spring runoff issues are a different issue. It is what it is.
Yeah,
What we're
so-
talking about here mostly are our major drainage corridors and where we have water issues that are long-standing water issues, even throughout July and August, into the dry months where we still have standing water that's flooding, et cetera. Spring runoff is although the two do have some overlap, spring runoff is a different matter, and I will tell you now that we are concerned about spring runoff.
Yeah.
This
Gonna be
year.
lots of water.
There's lots of water, and if we get a quick
Mild,
spring,
yeah.
where we go from winter to summer, as we do fairly often, yeah, we'll have water. Our culverts with the last bunch of snows and the freezing refreeze, that we've had, we've got culverts out there that are absolutely, froze solid, and it's not gonna be a simple issue of steaming them. They're froze solid. They filled up with water in those +7, +8 days we had, and then they refroze back in -30 3 days later, and it's going to be a challenging spring for spring runoff.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion on this? Yes, Councillor Slipchik?
I just want to note that why I bring up these drainage ditches is because I've been hearing from constituents that have the drainage ditches on private property that was put in by the MD that have had issues in the past but never did receive responses in the past. So this is, I think there's areas we're going to make sure we're going to have to look at improving and at least get back to these people and let them know if we plan on doing anything and propose dates. That's all. I just want to make sure that we're going to listen to the constituents with problems on this.
And Mr. Reeve, and the council, regarding these ditches, if there were ditches that were made 40 years ago by the MD that were never registered, as far as I'm concerned, that was just something the MD did for somebody 40 years ago. We look after the registered drainage ditches. And the reason probably a lot of those ditches were never looked after, because they were never intended to be a long-term ditch. There might have been something that happened 40 years ago. We discussed only several weeks ago the issue in the south part of the MD with the road and this handshake deal. So a lot of these ditches that are out there are probably just exactly that. For us to go in now back onto private property and to clean ditches out that are on private property that are not registered drainage corridors is a whole bunch of other extra work that we're going to have a chat about as to what, again, is our responsibility on ditches that were built 40 years ago that were never registered, that we don't view internally as being part of our drainage plan. So that's a completely different, that's going to be a discussion similar to what we had regarding the road allowance issue of a few weeks back.
All right. We have a motion on the table. Any other discussions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Defeated. Councillor Crevier?
Thank you. Thank you. I'll make a motion to approve this as presented.
Okay, Councillor Kraviak makes a motion that council approves the 2022 drainage project priorities map as presented. Any discussion on this? Councillor Crick?
Yeah, I would like to make a motion or an amendment to the motion that we, number 60 gets moved up to a high priority level.
Okay, we have amendment to the, any discussion on this amendment? Yes?
I'd say it might be easier to just bring it as a whole another issue in another time, probably easier to get it through once you have a little more information on exactly what needs to be done and how you're going to do it, instead of just saying it's a priority, just saying.
Well, if it's a high priority, then we'll get that information, right?
Okay, any other discussion?
Mr. Reeve?
Yes.
So the amendment to the motion is to move it to a higher level. Which other higher level? Is it an A project? Is it a B project? So that would be, because we have lots of B projects that didn't make this to-do list either.
It'll be an A project, the green level, the highest priority.
So Mr. Reeve, members of the council, if we're going to make it an A project, that moves it into municipal infrastructure, because that's very specific in the green is municipal infrastructure. So that throws our complete priority list completely. And I'm happy if council wants to do that. I'm certainly not, for me, it's the process is we've got green is municipal infrastructure. The next one was communities. And then the next one was private property. So if we're going to move it into municipal infrastructure, then municipal infrastructure doesn't mean anything more on the priority list, because now we've included private property on it.
Yes, and I think this is, okay. let's just, okay, go ahead.
I'm not opposed to looking at it, I just don't think it's the right, I don't think you should add it as a priority. I think we could bring it up as another issue down the road for sure.
Yeah,
So I'm not gonna make, so I'm just not gonna agree to it just without knowing what needs to be done or how we're gonna do it. So we can bring it up another time, for sure.
If I could suggest to council and specifically to Councillor Crick, a motion arising directing administration to bring back detailed information on number 60 on the list to a future council meeting, we absolutely could do that.
Yes. Okay,
Sure.
Councillor Craig.
I'll go with that motion.
Okay, so we're dropping,
That's it? Okay.
don't we have to vote? What's that? Did you drop your amendment?
You're not making the amendment, right?
I'll drop the amendment then.
So then we have this motion to vote on first, Mr.
Any other
Reeve.
discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried, thank you. Thank you, sir.
So
You
can I-
did a wonderful job.
So can I make an
We
emergency?
need to get a little bit of a stand for the mic for you.
I need a higher microphone, yeah.
Okay,
Okay, we're going to do one more motion before we eat. Councillor Crick.
I'd like to make a motion that, in regards to the drainage map number 60, that we direct administration to bring back detailed information on that drainage project.
Councillor Fidel.
I just have a question that has the information, have you asked administration for any information besides today? Like, have you worked with our administration at all to try and figure out some sort of background on this?
Yes, just there's the lake, there's an inverted culvert at the end of that lake that's, to my understanding, is keeping the level of the lake high, and it needs to be taken out, so.
So then you know the answer.
Well, we need to get it done, though, that's the problem. Okay.
You girls got that written down yet? You're lucky I'm not typing. I'm known as the one-fingered wonder. Yeah, I could do 7 words a minute, all right. 70? Wow. Yeah. Okay, we have a motion that council directs administration, oh, that's okay. That's the wrong one. Okay, we have a motion that council directs administration to bring back detailed information on Barrier Lake outlet to Range Road 452 at Township 613 drainage project on the drainage project priorities maps to a future meeting of council as directed. Any discussion on this? Yeah, I have some. You could work with staff and we could have saved a lot of time. You could have just talked to those guys and they would have gladly worked with you. We wasted a lot of time here on this simple issue. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. All right, we're going to break for dinner. Good job, everyone. Welcome back. We're going to 735. And I think we're gonna.
So we did discuss tabling this till next meeting when the other two councilors are here, but I just have a quick question though beforehand. And, you know, I guess I'm just wondering, like, why are you bringing this here to ask us to tender it? Like, wasn't that something you would just do?
Through the reef. So the reason to bring this forward right now is because the Moose Lake one out of the 3 is the only one that's ready to go. The other 2, we still don't have a timeline on when those approvals will be made. Plus, they have additional issues with them that we felt that they maybe should be deferred until later times. So that was kind of the intent, so that we could move forward with at least one of these. The other two could still be going through the approval process, and then when the transportation and stuff works on the road projects, they could be done at those times to align with construction, so we're not ripping up trails that we just built a couple years prior and stuff to redo them. So that was kind of part of this to bring forward, but I understand if you want to table it for.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, yeah, I'll make a motion to table, I suppose, until next council meeting. That way everyone's here to listen, so.
Okay. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you.
If
Go ahead.
I may, Mr.
Yeah.
Chair, I also want to clarify comments that I made during the last meeting about Muriel Lake. They weren't really clear, so when I spoke about the horseback riding at Muriel Lake, it's pulled out of the activities that are allowed at Muriel Lake at this time. It is still, however, included in the current application that is pending approval. So horseback riding is not permitted at this time at Muriel Lake until that application is approved, and then we can have that activity again. So I just wanted to clarify if there was confusion.
Yeah, thank you.
There, so.
Yeah, appreciate that. Okay, have a great rest of the day.
Yes, good. Thank you.
Oh, did you have a question? You sure? Okay. Sorry, I didn't see that.
He's already burned up all his time for today, so.
Yeah. Where are we at? 752? Or did we do that one? Where are we at? All right, 752? Yep.
So that's bylaw 1793, the amending and repealing bylaw.
751, yeah.
So with the redesignation of the MD of Bonnyville's Development Authority and Subdivision Authority from the MPC to council, existing municipal legislation does need to be adjusted to reflect this change. So as such, administration has prepared bylaw number 1793, which amends and repeals current MD bylaws in response to the change. Bylaw 1793 amends current MD bylaws number 1787 procedural bylaw. It updates subsection 6.9 to include development applications and subdivision applications in the order of business which council deals at a meeting, as well as number 1748 boards and committees bylaw subsection 3.2a is deleted and removed to which was the acknowledgement of MPC as a standing board or committee in the MD. Bylaw number 1793 is also repeals bylaw 1344, which establishes the Municipal Planning Commission for the municipality. The Committee of the Whole reviewed this bylaw on February 16th and are recommending that Council approve passing the bylaw as presented. So our recommended action today is that bylaw number 1793, being a bylaw of the Municipal District of Bonnyville, to amend the procedural bylaw and boards and committees bylaw and repeal the Municipal Planning Commission bylaw, be given first reading.
Thank you, Steph.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Councillor Crick makes the motion that bylaw number 1793 being a bylaw of the MD of Bonnyville number 87 to amend the procedural bylaw and boards and committee bylaws and repeal the Municipal Planning Commission bylaw be given first reading. Any discussion on this? Yes, Councillor Scarson.
Yeah, so, is there an easy out on this, I guess? Like, what happens at the point, like, our meetings are already till 4 o'clock, let's say, so if we add another hour, is there an easy way, like, if it starts to get busy again, let's say, to get back to an MPC meeting, or how does that?
To reestablish MPC, it would just kind of be a similar process. We would just need to, so the bylaws that were given first reading today, including this one, we would basically, we'd have to just reestablish MPC through the land use bylaw and an MPC bylaw, and then reestablish the two authorities to MPC again. It would just be shifting the bylaws again.
Yeah, okay, and then, now, what takes precedence here? Like, if we have a bunch of MPC items covered, do things out of the agenda for council get pushed, or the other way around, or does everything from MPC, it's MPC first and nothing else?
So in line with our procedural bylaw, administration will take everything that's been received by the submission deadline and put it on the draft agenda, and that does ultimately go to the Reeve and Deputy Reeve for final approval before we proceed with finalizing the agenda. So it would be at their discretion in consultation with the CAO and administration.
And through the Reeve to council, I would also suggest that because there's now going to be two council meetings, as always, two council meetings a month. MPC used to be only one MPC meeting a month. That anything MPC has been doing recently, over the last year, for example, would be split basically in half. So those meetings, that there are two items, you'd only have one item at one meeting and one item maybe at the next meeting. So I don't see this as being particularly adding to the length of a council package. And we can certainly look at the council packages, and if we have timelines we can work with, and there's a smaller package in terms of council agenda, we can move more MPC stuff to that one. We'll have some ability to be flexible. And as Ms. Severin indicated, it's just a matter of reversing these bylaws, taking a couple of months, and MPC could be reestablished if we found that it was getting really busy.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Yes, Councillor Gravia.
Thank you. Well, if there's 2 or 3 items in MPC, if you delay it, it'll be 2 weeks longer for the people to wait to get their work done.
Through the Reeve to Councillor Kreviak. Councillor Kreviak is absolutely right. That is one of the advantages to bringing this to council, is as opposed to a monthly meeting where our residents are waiting for their development permit and subdivision approvals, they now have an opportunity on a 2-week cycle to get their approvals in place. We also have on the other side, we also have the legal timelines of either 45 or 60 days, depending on the type of application. So we want to always be inside those days, because outside the 45 and 60 days, an application is deemed to be refused. This gives us the ability to massage that schedule a little bit, and also, I think, provide a better service to our residents by being able to deal with an application every 2 weeks as opposed to on a monthly basis.
Yes, Councillor Scarson.
Yeah, so do you have the ability to call, let's say, a special meeting if, let's say, you got slammed with a bunch of applications?
Absolutely, and through the Reeve to Councillor Scarson, absolutely. If we found that one day we had 17 applications for subdivision development permits, et cetera, with a simple act of the Reeve calling a special meeting to deal with item number 6 and 7 on the agenda, you could have a 3-hour special council meeting. Absolutely, that would be, I frankly would think that would be a better idea long-term or in the medium term than going back to MPC and having a whole, having people drive in, every month, as opposed to maybe the once in a while when that might happen. But you're absolutely right. We certainly could have a special council meeting to deal with those applications.
Yeah, and also we're cutting the MPC in half. So like instead of 1 month, it's every 2 weeks. So it's just, it should be way less per meeting, right?
I guess I'm just thinking optimistically.
Yeah, I guess. Because if there's like 3, that's like 1.5 now per meeting, right? So
Yeah,
go
but
ahead.
Mr. Reeve, we can't be cutting, if there's 4 or 5 items on the first council meeting, you can't be cutting some back and delaying 2 weeks. Those have to be brought to the first council meeting.
Well, if
Only
we go
there's
to, if we go
extra.
to 3 to 4 o'clock, well, so we go, right? It's, we'll get her done. Any other discussion?
Yeah, just one quick question. So does that mean that the chair remains the chair for that MPC portion of the meeting?
I knew he was going to bring that up.
Through the council, through the Reeve, yes, the Reeve would then be the chair, because there would no longer be a municipal planning commission. It would be council, so the Reeve would retain the chair.
And then you can have a cattle prod, and if I'm not fast enough, just right around, well, this won't be here. Give me a shot. All right, we have this motion. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. Thank you, Steph.
Thank you.
752.
Thank you, Mr. Reeve, members of council. 752 is regarding the Federation of Canadian Municipalities update. In November of 2019, council approved resolution 19.656, allowing the MD of Bonnyville's Federation of Canadian Municipalities FCM membership to lapse. As a result, the MD has not been a member of FCM since 2020. FCM recently announced details on hosting a 2022 FCM conference and trade show, the first in 2 years due to the COVID-19 pandemic. This conference is being held in Regina with additional details available in Appendix B. Additionally, FCM has reached out to municipality to reestablish our membership with FCM for 2022. The membership fee for 2022 would be $3,066.01, broken down as follows. Base fee is $567 and a per capita fee of $2,499.01. Specifics such as registration fees for the 2022 conference are not yet posted. However, based on registration fees from 19 and 20, administration has estimated 2022 registration fees to potentially be for a member, early bird $950, non-member $1,100, regular rate for a member $1,100 and non-member $1,300, and these costs do not include travel and accommodation. If council decides to not proceed with becoming a member of FCM, administration would recommend that council amends policy number 1.003, councillor, committee, and board member meeting attendance policy to remove the annual conference of Federation of Canadian Municipalities, and attached for council's review are Appendix A, B, and C. The cost and source of funding, $3,066.01 for the 2022 membership, which would be funded out of the 2022 operating budget. And costs associated with attending the conference would depend on the status of the MD's membership, as well as how many councillors choose to attend. Those costs would also be funded from the 2022 operating budget. It is our recommendation that council approves the Municipal District of Bonnyville to become a member of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities effective immediately, and you can see the council options below.
Thank you, Mr. Hogan.
I'd just like to ask the question of the CAO, if possible, what the benefits you would see to the MD would be for us going to this conference.
FCM, I don't believe as an organization and specific to the MD Bonnyville, the conference itself probably specifically conference related probably doesn't provide a ton of value to the MD. However, the value is very similar to convention. The value is in the networking that takes place, the meeting of certain people. I have told the Reeve the story when I was at Nehill County. The similar questions were being asked about the value of attending FCM until we went one year. The Reeve, at the time, Reeve Bob Long, ran into a minister, deputy minister in the federal government, and 6 or 8 weeks later, we had a grant for a waterline project from the feds up well over $1 million. So those opportunities don't exist if you don't attend. You've heard me say before, if you're not at the table, you're probably on the menu. And I think that they treat rural Alberta and small rural populations poorly at the Federation. But if you're not there, you can't affect that in any kind of way. The actual conference itself, there's some interesting stuff, but whether or not it has great value to the MD, I think is minimal. But I think the value is in the people that you talk to and the people you meet and the ideas that get brought back home, particularly from out of our province. We often have a very cloistered view of the world in Alberta, and you opportunity to speak to somebody from Newfoundland and Ontario and British Columbia, find out how they're doing things and bringing that information back.
Yes, Councillor.
Yeah, I can speak to it a bit as well. I was able to attend one FCM meeting when I was my last term there, and you know, I referenced it lots for the some of the things that we visited, the way they do things. It was in Nova Scotia, so just learning about how they did different things there with their infrastructure and everything else. And then, yeah, like you said, networking, like collected a lot of business cards and was able to do a lot of meet and greets and things like that. That's kind of what they promote the whole time, right? So I think there's value. I think that especially this one's a little bit closer, which is easier to get to. So I'm in favor of it for sure. So.
Councillor. Okay. Thank you, Councillor Slipchick, for making that motion. That council approves the MD Municipal District of Bonnyville become a member of the Federation of Canada Municipalities, FCM, effective immediately. Any discussion? Yes, Councillor Gravia?
Thank you, Mr. Reeve. I think you remember this. There was one year we went to, I think it was Quebec City, and Reeve Rondo and Mayor Isley met a minister, and they got over $1 million funding for the C2, for the lab there. So we do get funding if you attend.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Two good examples. All right, all those in favor? Carried. Thank you.
And Mr. Reeve, I would just add that Ms. Bartlett will be sending out probably very quickly the registrations. We're just trying to sort out who's coming, who's not coming. It's only in Regina, so it's not a particularly, the logistics are fairly easy. I would imagine most people are likely going to drive. Yeah.
We can take our private jet.
Yeah, we can take the private county jet. And so we'll be sending out those registrations soon because the conference is early June. I think the weekend of the 3rd or the 4th.
Thank you. On to correspondence.
Thank you, Mr. Reid. Members of the council, what you have in front of you is the council correspondence. I won't point out too much other than the one thing of particular interest is the not so gentle reminder that we received on January the 19th from the Minister of Municipal Affairs regarding our tax ratios. We are being encouraged to consider measures to address our tax ratio when we develop the upcoming tax rates in April and May. That's the only one there in particular I thought I would point out.
Yes, Councillor Scarson.
I don't know if there was an email you sent yesterday. Is this the time you want to talk about that too?
We certainly could. I sent an email to council late in the day yesterday. The Reeve and I met with CNRL regarding the upcoming Pathways project. That project is now moving ahead. They're doing some stakeholder consultation, and what they indicated to us, yes, and some of the mapping as to where the big boiler stations are going to be, where the injection points are going to be. It's a little out of my skill set to talk too much about carbon sequestration. The net project by 2050 is in the vicinity of a $75 billion project. We certainly asked what the upfront, the first phase would be. They were a little reluctant to give us an exact number, other than it would be billions of dollars. We certainly encouraged locations for all of the machinery and equipment to take place inside the MD of Bonnyville, as opposed to outside the MD. And we had a bit of a brief glimpse, and everything that we heard yesterday is in that presentation. If the Reeve has something he'd like to add to that.
Yeah, I think he covered it quite well. It was very interesting, and like Al said, we're looking at some of the points. They got a big dot on a map, so you don't know where it's going to be. So we wanted to promote that the more the big dots in our area, the better. Yeah, it was very interesting. It was about a 15-minute to half an hour presentation. Yeah.
So what about timeline-wise, like next steps? What were they talking here? Like,
my understanding from the presentation yesterday is, because I actually asked the question about when are we going to see shovels in the ground. They kind of tiptoed around that a little bit, but I got the sense that we're probably talking 25, 26. This is going to require federal government environmental approval, provincial government environmental approval. This may be one of those big projects that falls under the new federal legislation regarding large infrastructure projects and all the new requirements around them. My takeaway was probably 3 to 4 years from now for phase 1 to start, and then wherever that goes from there. They have to be done. The goal, as stated to us yesterday, was net zero by 2050 as per federal regulation. So it has to be completed by then. I think the long term, the area that you can see in the map that they had is the area where they're going to be doing the sequestration itself. A lot of it's going to be coming down through pipeline and then injected into those areas. They picked those areas specifically because of the shale and limestone formations, which are heavily sodium, which apparently absorbs carbon sequestration better than other geological formations. So that was my takeaway, was probably 4-ish years. They've just started initial engineering, and then when they do the applications and all those things to actually start moving ahead with the project. There are 5 partners in the project. It was MEG, Imperial, CNRL, Synovus, and Suncor?
Suncor, yeah, not Syncrude, yeah, Suncor.
Yeah. So those are the big, those are the 5 players in it. When we had the industry meeting in the morning prior to that, the Imperial fellow was with us as well, the stakeholder relations, Jeff Wilson with Imperial, and he indicated that they were working together as part of that Pathways project. It's a fairly significant project that they're all working on.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor.
Yeah, was there anything mentioned about what ways we as an MD can assist with their program?
They didn't ask that specifically, but we are very clear that the more of it that ends up in our municipality and increases our both our economic position, our tax position, employment position, the more services we would be able to provide. If they weren't in the MD and then expected more services, we indicated very clearly that would be difficult, but if they're in the MD and it has a significant economic impact, that we would be interested in sitting down to talk to them about how we become a small partner in this big project.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on that? All right. We're going to just go to 9 now, a report from members of council. Oh, yeah. Man, I did that like 5 times today. Councillor Kraviak. Okay, we make a motion. All of that up there on the screen. Any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. Yeah, I'd be reading here for half an hour. Council reports. Mr. Crick.
There wasn't too much in the last week that I was at, but we did have a BRFA meeting, and happy to see everything, all the fire service, 911, dispatch, all going to be going out to the Capella building. So I think that'll be a good move, and I guess it won't be the Capella building much longer. It'll be I'm not sure, it'll be BRFA building, I guess. So.
Okay, thank you. Mike? Yeah, sure.
Thank you. I attended a police meeting with the Bonnyville RCMP. Break and enters were down 5%. Theft of motor vehicles was up by 10%. Sorry, I didn't mean to laugh
that one.
Theft under 5,000, 21% decrease, so things are going a little bit better. 638 files created in December, and 184 were traffic related, 81 collisions, and 57 in the MD. Bonnyville Victim Services, there were 57 domestic and family violence files, so that's quite a few. BRFA, EMS, just add to what Councillor Crick had there. EMS has short 3 full-time CoreFlex members. It's very hard to staff this CoreFlex because it's 96 hours in and 96 hours off, but they're doing the best they can. And then yesterday I had 2 interviews for Deputy Fire Chief, and there's going to be 4 more interviews tomorrow. That's it for me. Thank you.
Councillor Slipchik.
That was a pretty quiet week. Last week we had met with the lodge, had the lodge meeting, Lakeland Lodge in Housing, and they're dealing with an outbreak there, but they're handling it very well. They're still looking for an HR resident, and they've been dealing with issues with deficiencies in their warranty work, the contractors work, and having a hard time getting the government to work with them and reply to them on them. And previous meeting that we mentioned about if councils can help with a letter or form of reprimand towards the Alberta government, towards somehow assist with them with those deficiencies. All she had to do was mention that she's going to get counsel involved, and they immediately start working with her right away. So that's something we can always make sure we pay attention of if there's ever issues like that, that we always assist these organizations. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Scarson?
Yeah, so I just had a BSN meeting, Business Support Network, last week, which is basically, you know, as many businesses in the area that get together and just talk about some of the struggles that they've got and some of the things that are working. So that was kind of neat. And other than that, not much. I think we got a CT meeting probably next week or the week after, and that's it.
And ladies and gentlemen, it's not funny that people get their vehicles stolen, but Mike was just rubbing me there because I got mine stolen here right at the MD. I got it back though. Also, I attended the BFRA, and you guys, Mike and Josh, you covered that well, and Al, you covered that well with that. I also did a fun thing I did as a 4-H public speaking. I was a judge, and I did it with a former Reeve, Mrs. Erlacher, and the mayor of Cold Lake, Mr. Copeland. And we had a great time at Alexander Hall, and the kids did very well. So that was one of the fun things I had to do. So, okay. I guess we're going into closed session. I need a motion to go into closed session. Yes, Councillor Kraviak, all those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Looking for a motion?
Thank you, Mr. Reeve. I'll make the motion to go with Appendix B, Option 1, which is the 20 years at 0% interest for the repayment of the loan to the MD.
No, because we had a consensus.
Okay, we're going to just wait for... Okay, thank you for that motion. That
Through the Councilor Kraviak, we're coming back with the agreement anyway. The council will approve the final draft. So if it's not the numbers you want,
you're not going to approve it.
You're not going to approve it. We understand what numbers you want, and it'll come back with the final draft. If you want to put that in a motion, that's absolutely up to you, but it's not required. We understand.
I know, but the people, do they understand? That's all.
Well, they will when the agreement is finally signed. They certainly will. But you can certainly put it in the motion if you like. It just makes it a little more complicated.
If you're okay with it, you're nice.
Yeah, we'll be fine. Okay, thank you. That council directs administration to draft an agreement with Bonneville Regional Fire Authority for the transfer of property located at Plan 0622913, Block 1, Lot 1 and 2 for consideration at the March 9th, 2022 regular meeting of council. Any discussion on this motion, gentlemen? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried, thank you. We need someone to adjourn the meeting. Thank you.
Make a motion to adjourn.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Thank you, ladies.